Mike Hoss and meteorologist Carl Arredondo. This is Louisiana's news leader, Channel 4's Eyewitness News.
Good evening, everyone. After weeks of attacks and counterattacks in one of Louisiana's most notorious gubernatorial campaigns, it is finally Judgment Day. We go to live pictures now. Grace King High School, one of the largest voting precincts in Jefferson Parish. The precinct, along with most others across the city and state, are expecting near-record voter turnout. Local election officials report now no major problems other than the fact that some people had to wait a while to vote. Janet Gross has more on today's voter turnout.
One at a time, they've worked on breaking a record. While the vote hasn't been counted yet, enough voters have been to make election officials think this is the big time.
M-E-R-C-A-N-T-E.
For many today, voting seems to be a bigger responsibility than usual. Maybe because it's so close, maybe because it's so controversial.
Are you ready for it to be over?
Right now.
But nearly over doesn't mean it's time to relax. For some, a tough night lies ahead.
Are you worried about the outcome?
Yeah, very scared. Our friend is real close in the run. And I'm shocked, really shocked. I don't believe these people actually vote for this guy.
I see it as a no-win situation.
Very nervous. Why? Because the man that's running against the other person, he's very dangerous. We don't want him in our community, our state.
I'm worried about the image of our state. I'm worried about the future of our state. I just hope everything works out for the best. I hope the best man wins.
Well, the answer to which man wins won't be known for a few hours, but those who cast a ballot say they figure they did their part.
I'm a hard patient. They're bringing me back when I get in the car.
Getting out the vote meant free rides for a lot of voters today. One radio station has been taking calls and taking people all day.
We took at least about 500 people to the polls, and we're looking to take at least about 1,000 or maybe even better than that.
In 2 hours, this will all be out of voters' hands. Of course, some people figure that's the way it's been all along.
My faith and my trust is not in the man himself.
So I'm not worrying about this election because I don't trust in Edwards, I don't trust in Duke, I trust in the Lord.
I'm Janet Gross, Channel 4 Eyewitness News.
Up the road in Baton Rouge, long lines were also the norm. As a matter of fact, some voters in the capital city were so anxious to vote, they were waiting in line when the polls opened at 6 a.m. A record-breaking number of voters is expected in Baton Rouge as well. Louisiana is literally being watched by the world tonight as two controversial candidates battle it out for the governor's mansion. All polls indicate this race is probably too close to call. Joining us now from our election studio is John Snell and Channel 4 analyst Ed Renwick with final thoughts on this election. And I know that both of you gentlemen were debating how this was going to come out tonight earlier in the newsroom.
Who isn't? I am amazed at the turnout. I did an interview with the St. Louis radio station the other day, and they said, you have what for turnout? 70, 80%? People around the country can't get over how many people are going to go to the polls. They were saying at the Commissioner of Elections office today something perhaps in the low 80s statewide.
It's an incredible turnout. And of course, turnout helps Edwards, makes it more likely that he will win with a great big turnout, and especially a great big turnout in the black community, which we obviously are seeing. At our precinct, we voted about 11:30 a day, which made it a 45% turnout at that time. Generally, I vote around that time and basically double the vote and take a couple points away. If that happened, it'd be close to an 88% turnout, which would be unprecedented, be unbelievable.
The record is just shy of 80, I think, not necessarily in that, in that precinct.
So we could well hit an all-time record statewide. I mean, we're talking about big turnout because we're having big turnout with both races.
And at white and black voters, in fact, in Orleans earlier this afternoon, the black turnout seemed to be just a little bit higher than the white turnout, although we understand it is high just all over the state. How does this affect other races? Lieutenant Governor, Attorney General, the rest?
Well, basically, it would help the Democratic candidates, particularly if you have a very, very high black turnout. And so I think it would help the Democratic candidates and hurt the Republican ones.
People feel strongly about both of these candidates. Some like one of them very much. Some don't like either one of them. I've never seen emotion in a race like this, which I guess is what accounts for the turnout.
Well, 1/3 of the people liked Edwards, they voted for him. 1/3 liked Duke, they voted for him. So 2 out of 3 people that voted earlier obviously liked one of them, but that 1/3 didn't. And now we're getting an awful lot of new people in there, especially blacks, and of course all those new registrants are added into it. So we're going to push turnout way up from the way it was in the first primary. And, of course, that was high by national standards. But this is going to, looks like it's really going through the roof.
And so, I mean, it really could turn some numbers in some of these other races.
Oh, yeah, it could really help some of the Democrats. And, of course, it could help Edwards a lot, because extremely high black turnout is just incredibly good for him.
How about some of these tax questions around the state? I mean, higher turnout would sometimes help taxes, I suppose sometimes hurt, depending upon the tax.
I think, yeah, taxes, I think you generally need a low turnout. The people like that tax. I think the higher the turnout, taxes would not necessarily be helpful.
Then you've got an anti-government candidate on the ballot and all the rest.
You have to get across to the people why that tax is. If you haven't got that across successfully, then a high turnout wouldn't be good for that particular tax.
You have your sample precincts that report into you by about, what, 8:30 or so? So
hopefully 8:30 to 9.
So we'll have hopefully some numbers and maybe be able to call the election at that time. Of course, we'll be back at 7:30 with our live coverage. Let's see if it's not such a long night this time. Back to you, Len.
All right. Thanks, John and Ed. We want to remind everyone that our WWL coverage begins live at 7:30. At that time, we will go to the Duke and Edwards campaign headquarters. The polls close at 8. Returns are expected, as gentlemen just said, to start rolling in shortly after. We will stay on the air until the final vote is counted. In other news, this morning's severe fall.
WWL-TV Channel 4. This is an Eyewitness News special presentation. Live from WWL-TV Channel 4, it's Campaign 91, the final count, with complete returns on statewide and local elections. Now, here's Bill Elder, Angela Hill, John Snell, and Sally Ann Roberts.
Good evening. A bitter and divisive gubernatorial campaign is now in its waning hours.
Thousands of Louisianians are on the edge of their seats as the final votes are being cast. In just half hour, we will begin to see who the people have picked to be their next governor.
Will former Governor Edwin Edwards be elected to an unprecedented 4th term and, as he says, a chance to redeem his reputation? Or will it be State Representative David Duke, who has built a grassroots campaign with white voters who are disenfranchised with or disenchanted with the established political system?
Well, as we watch the votes mount up here, the candidates will be watching from their parties in Baton Rouge and New Orleans. And we get our first report now from the capital city, where our reporting team of Mike Longman, Dave McNamara, and Bill Campo are covering the Duke party.
Bill Elder, we are here now with Representative David Duke. I know that you've been trying to get numbers. Obviously, at this stage of the game, everybody tries to get numbers. What are you gauging about turnout? What have you heard so far?
Well, I'm hearing that it's one of the biggest turnouts we've ever had in our state, and I like that kind of figure, because when you have a high turnout, the special interests of the political machine impact is lessened. And so I like a high turnout, and I think that's what we're going to have in this election.
I know when we were up in the northern portion of the state earlier this week, they were talking about rain there today. Was that a concern of yours throughout the day?
It was a concern, but I think it'll factor evenly among the voters. Again, North Louisiana is strong for me, but I think those people are going to come out, whether it rains or snows or hurricanes or whatever. They're very dedicated people.
A long day for you yesterday. I saw on Nightline they finally got you to make a prognostication. I think you said 50.8%. Where do you feel right now? What are you looking at?
I believe I wrote it down last night. I think I'm going to get 50.8%. I think Edwards will get 49.2. I think it's going to be a close race. Again, that's just what I would just guess at this point. I've heard a lot of my staff says we're going to get 52, 53, but I know things have a way of tightening up at the end.
In the final week or so, Edwards was talking about the possibility of a 10-point victory. How do you assess that kind of talk?
I don't believe that. No way at all. I think people are really tired of the politics of the past, and I really would urge people to also go out and vote right now. They still have got a few minutes to do it. If you're in line at 8 o'clock, they can still vote, and I think we need to get people to the polls.
Finally, you talked about many issues in this campaign. Which one do you think was your anchor? Which one do you think really grabbed the voters?
Oh, I think there's so many, but I think it's government. I think government's too big, our taxes are too high. That's what hurts business, it hurts employment in the state of Louisiana. And there are other things that go along with that. Again, the welfare system is producing more and more government. It's producing more and more poverty, more illegitimacy, more crime. And I think that we've got to start changing that system if we're going to have a future in this state and really in this whole country.
Representative David Duke, thank you. And again, the candidate suggesting we might have a long night here. Certainly, if it does come down to a 50.8% win on your part, we will be here well into the night. You don't expect to be having any early victory call?
I'm not expecting an early victory call for either candidate. I think that it's going to be a long night because it's a very close election. And I just urge people to go out and vote. You still have a few minutes, and I think this is really great, though, to see this kind of participation in this state. This is what we all talk about getting people out participating in politics, not staying home, and I'm really glad to see it. It's good for our state. It's good for the country, and the more people participate in government, the better chance we have to really reform government.
Thank you, Representative Duke. That's it here by a satellite from Baton Rouge. Now we go to New Orleans, the Monteleone Hotel, and Edwards headquarters, and our Eyewitness News crew there.
All right, Mike, thanks very much. Mike Ross, Eric Paulson, and Alan Berg here. Already, even before the polls have closed, there's an air of jubilation here at Edwards' campaign headquarters, here at the Monteleone Hotel. Some of the people we've been talking to in the Edwards campaign have been talking about figures from 60% to 63% for Edwards. They have exit polls. The figures they're getting are just that high.
And they're looking for anything but a close race tonight. I talked to one of Edwards' top supporters in the Baton Rouge area about 40 minutes ago, and he said they're anticipating about 60%, and they'd be very happy with that. They're looking to beat David Duke strongly tonight, and I think, too, they're looking to vindicate Edwin Edwards' loss 4 years ago to Buddy Roemer.
At the same time, the candidate himself appeared to be fairly tense, I guess, as he's walking over to the Louisiana to eat dinner tonight. It's obvious that the strain of the last few weeks has caught up with him. It's been a very emotional campaign, and even though he does feel like he has momentum going into tonight, there has to be some sort of doubt in his mind, because exit polls traditionally haven't been a very good indicator of what has happened in the booth in races that David Duke has been in.
Alan, you've been covering him for quite some time. One of the things he's done is kind of upped his projections as the campaign's gone on.
He started out, actually, he started out right after the primary, and he was talking about how he wanted to win with 60%. Then he was backing it off, and he was saying it's going to be tight. And then this last week, you're right, he's come back, and now he says he's going to win in a landslide. So, I guess that his ebb and flows has tracked or has been with his own tracking polls.
Well, the confidence is here strong tonight.
Edwards supporters, though, in the New Orleans area in the last few days have been a little less optimistic. They've said they felt that the Roemer vote was going to Edwards, but there was a little bit of hesitancy about midweek. I think they were feeling stronger, though, by Friday afternoon.
Well, we'll see what happens. There's still about 20 minutes for the polls to remain open, and we'll be watching as the night goes through. Back to the studio now.
All right, Eric, thank you. As with always during these elections, joining us is our Channel 4 political analyst, Ed Renwick.
And I know that you're going to make your prediction after the polls close, but let's talk about gut feeling, Ed.
Edwards leading in the poll that we did, and so I think stick with it. That's what he had the lead, and no use changing your mind on election night.
Is that political science or political art?
It's political hope that if your poll is right.
What kind of numbers are you looking at? 51, 52, higher, lower, what?
Well, he had just giving the leaners 52 and distributing people 54, and if you took the people who said they wouldn't vote for either one of them, 56. So he's obviously got a cerebral point possible victory there. But whether he would roll into some of these large figures that the Edwards people are talking about, I don't know. It's possible. If the Roemer vote overwhelmingly shifted to Edwards, then he could roll up to around 60. But we hadn't seen any evidence of that. Maybe they have in the last couple of days, but I haven't done any poll research.
And that's really a point we don't emphasize. I think it's our failing in the media not to emphasize enough that polls are snapshots in time. They tell us what was on the people's mind a week ago, in your case. I mean, 6 days ago you got out of the field in that thing. It's possible, I mean, just by the very nature, by definition, 25% of the people in this campaign are going to move to one candidate or the other, so people are moving in massive numbers in one direction or the other.
I imagine many people actually made up their minds today. I know I talked to several people who actually did make up their minds today in the polling booth.
Had waited this long.
That's right. Waited until they were there.
Now, what do you think about the last-minute so-called bombshell of David Duke?
Well, everybody knew all about Edwards and his problems with patronage and jobs and contributions. That was a 1983 story about a 1971 event. And basically, that's Edwards' problem in getting the whites, because the whites, and the blacks probably did also, but he had the black vote. But the whites knew all about Edwards' past. That was his problem. Only 25% of the whites believed he had changed. So many of the whites were going to vote for him, were going to vote for him believing he had not changed. So really, that was just telling the whites what they already knew. That's been Edwards' problem from day one.
All right, Dr. Renwick, we'll hear probably a lot from you as the night goes on.
Stay with us, Ed.
Up next, we'll take a look at who is turning out at the polls.
Campaign 91, The Final Count, is a special presentation of Channel 4's Eyewitness News and is sponsored tonight by the Greater New Orleans International Auto Show, personal injury attorney Michael Hingle, Tharp Sonheimer Tharp Funeral Home, to be remembered when a choice is necessary, and by Lamanna Panna Fallow Funeral Home, remembered for generations by New Orleans families.
In this
It was expected from the beginning of this runoff campaign that turnout would be near record proportions. The high voter registration numbers after the primary, absentee voting that reached a record of more than 75,000 ballots, and polls that showed voters extremely interested all pointed to a high turnout today. The question remaining, of course, is which candidate was best able to get his voters to the polls?
For a small-scale comparison now of who voted, we have two live reports, one from New Orleans, one from Metairie. We'll go first now to Cheryl Hickman, who is uptown in New Orleans.
Bill, we are uptown on Jefferson Avenue in the 13th Ward. There are two precincts here. Both are reporting very much higher than normal turnout, about 80% in fact, compared to a normal turnout of between 40 and 55%. Now, these are precincts 10 and 12 in the 13th Ward. It's a good, strong mix of voters, both black and white. They say that the heaviest turnout was early this morning, evidently people trying to beat the rush, and the rush caught up with them early this morning. And especially here at Precinct 12, there were some problems because both of their machines broke down between 6:30 and 8:30 this morning, so they had some very long lines of irate voters. The machines did get fixed, and we're told that there really weren't any other problems later on in the day, and that the voting has gone very, very smoothly overall, even with the extremely high turnout here. Other than that, we are still waiting. We still have a few minutes left, and we expect a few more voters to come up until the very last minute of the polls, before the polls close. And we go now out to Metairie, where Len Cannon is standing by at another polling place. Len?
Cheryl Hickman, I am standing by at Grace King High School, one of the largest polling places in Jefferson Parish. Only one precinct here. Pretty empty right now, but a few last-minute voters have been coming through the door. The reason for that is just about everybody, and I do mean just about everybody in this precinct, has already voted. I talked to the election workers. They say that turnout to this point has been about 81%. Some incredible numbers. They also factored in some of the absentee votes, and that brings it up to about 87% turnout right here at Grace King High School. Unbelievable numbers at this point. Right now they say that they would need about 150, 160 people to come through the door in the next 15 minutes for them to get 100%. Obviously they won't do that, but it is incredibly high. The interest in this race, of course, incredibly high, and we're seeing it just by the turnout here at Grace King High School at one of the largest precincts in Jefferson Parish. Back to you in the studio.
All right, thank you, Len. In just a moment, we will be back with a look at the other statewide races after this.
Our excellent select.
There are New Orleanians in each of the other 4 major statewide races tonight. Doug Schmidt is battling Fox McKithen for the Secretary of State office. Ben Baggert is having a hard fight with Lake Charles District Attorney Richard Ayub, and Peggy Wilson and Jim Brown have been locked in a nasty race for the Insurance Commission. We'll have live reports on all of them later in the evening, but now we're going to take you to the party of the New Orleanian with the best shot at winning.
Well, our polls early this week showed Melinda Schwegman with a 14-point lead over incumbent Lieutenant Governor Paul Hardy. Andre Trevine is at the Schwegman party now and joins us with a live update.
Bill, Angela talked about nasty races earlier, and that's what this race got down to in the last few weeks with some of the television ads, at least, that have been running. As you said, Melinda Schwegman is still polling with a lead, and she led by 5,000 votes back in the primary and took 15 states across the state and 2 more in northern Louisiana. I talked to her press secretary earlier, and she said that they're hoping that they can just make up the difference and pick up some more states, including the ones that they took the last time, and that's going to put them over the top. One note that one thing she did tell me, one of the ads that ran during this campaign, Mr. Hardy claimed Ms. Schwegman was endorsed by the Liberal National Organization for Women. I learned tonight that Now never really did endorse Ms. Schwegman, but it was an issue that they didn't want to keep alive and didn't want to go to court over at this stage in the race, so they didn't. But just that note that she was never endorsed by Now in spite of all the ads that ran. The listing here at the hotel says the party here starts at about 8 o'clock tonight. Already it's musicians and a few other people are here, and some guests are starting to come in very slowly. But we expect in about an hour or so there are going to be a lot of people in this room, and everyone here is very upbeat, and everyone is just sure that Ms. Schwegman's going to pull it out this time over incumbent Paul Hardy. Reporting live from the Hilton Hotel, back to the studio. This is Andre Trevine.
Thank you, Andre, and we will be back taking a look at some of the campaign ads right after this.
Hi, believe it or not.
A change in campaign finance laws may have left fewer dollars for political commercials this year, but whatever was lacking in numbers was made up for with content.
Janet Gross takes a look now at some of the more noticeable campaign ads in this election season.
This is an urgent message.
Isn't this incredible?
That's not true.
It's true.
Hot damn!
Who dat?
But then came Buddy Roemer with an...
As in most campaigns, people say a lot of things to get themselves elected. But here in Louisiana, this time around anyway, people are saying a lot of bad things about the other guy.
That's an outrageous conflict of interest.
For improper use of mind-altering drugs.
If you want an ultra-liberal...
And would you look at the picture they use? Gee whiz. That's the name of the game, though. Make them look bad, make them look stupid, make them look like animals. Now, there have been some campaigns run for fun. But Bay disappeared after the primary. Now it's cutthroat. Taped conversations.
This government, it may take decades to bring this government down.
Faked conversations.
Actually, John, I want Louisiana.
North or south?
All of it.
Created conversations.
Louisiana. As a Texan, I can think of 2 words. Hot damn!
Mostly, though, it's mudslinging.
Was making a deal. Supports lesbian and gay rights. Brutally beating his wife.
For improper use of physical restraints.
And guess what? We're just getting started.
With all that, I think you've got to be some kind of a nut to want to run for election. I mean, here's your personal life. And it's not just what they say, it's how they say it.
Janet Gross, a professional reporter, a journalist dedicated to getting the story and getting it to you. Her time has come. Vote for Jan.
Janet Gross, a journalist. She spent her adult life digging up dirt. A card-carrying member of the ultra-liberal media. Ooh, gross. It's time for a change.
See, the big choice here may not be who do you believe in, but who do you believe?
Vote for Paul Hardy.
Melinda Schwegman.
Doug Schmidt. Fox McKithen.
Peggy Wilson. Jim Brown. Edwin Edwards.
David Duke.
And I'm Janet Gross. Channel 4 Eyewitness News.
All right, now we go from that to serious analysis. Someone who keeps a close eye on the impact of TV commercials is Tulane Communications professor Kathleen Turner, and she joins Sally Ann Roberts for, after that, a serious discourse on television advertising and political campaigns, mind you.
If we can stop laughing long enough, we'll try to do that. What is your feeling about this, Dr. Turner? It's laughable on one side, but on the other side, this was a pretty muddy race.
Oh, it was very muddy. It was very divisive, and you can see that it was divisive from the gubernatorial level on down.
Did it filter down from the gubernatorial level? Do you think that's why we saw more divisive commercials, people trying to get the attention away from the gubernatorial race to say, hey, look at me?
I think that's part of it, in a kind of desperate plea when you've got this barrage of advertising, including a barrage of commercial advertising in the midst of the political advertising. There's a kind of desperation to say, this race is important. But in addition, I think the gubernatorial spots have set the tone for the other levels as well.
Let's look, before we start talking about the gubernatorial commercials and that race, the Hardy ads, the one where you had Melinda Swegman's mouth wide open, and he says it's sort of like an us against them sort of commercial against Now, against Soul, Bold, and the rest.
Yes.
So what is your reading on that? Was that an effective way to campaign?
Depends on how many people.
Turns out tonight.
Right.
Okay.
How many people decide that they are included in that group that Paul Hardy has defined as us, and how many say, hey, when you articulate it that way, I'm a them.
And so it sort of eliminates people from the camp and pushes people into the other camp. But of course, we'll have to see how the evening progresses to know how that worked out. Now, moving on to the gubernatorial race, there was a poll taken recently by WWL in which it showed, and other stations around Louisiana, in which it showed 60 to 65% of the people surveyed believe that the media are biased. And the Duke supporters believed even more so that the media have been biased in this campaign. What's your reaction?
Doesn't surprise me a bit that Duke supporters would be upset with the coverage.
But then on the other hand, you have people who say Duke's candidacy was created by the media. It is the media around the country that promoted his candidacy by putting him out there. Every time he appears on national television, he raises money. People send him money, and I think 50% or more of his contributions have come from out of state.
And you pointed to a wonderful irony, because at the very time that David Duke is charging the media with being biased and attacking him and picking on him, he is at the same time using the media very effectively as a channel to reach the kind of people he wants to reach.
And Dr. Kathleen Turner, thank you very much for joining us this evening. Back to you, John.
Sally, thank you. We are now nearing the end of the closing time of the polls, and we'll soon start seeing some numbers.
We'll also be taking a look at an exit poll conducted by the national television networks who are trying to predict the outcome of the race right after the polls close. We'll have that for you when we come back.
Close is kicking.
Here we go.
This election has drawn overwhelming national and international media attention, of course. Many see it as the beginning of a new trend of voter rebellion. Interest is so keen around the country that the nation's major television networks have spent thousands of dollars today on an exit poll questioning voters statewide on their choices as they left the voting booth. They hope to predict the winner of today's contest before all the votes are counted, and CBS, of course, is about to release the results of that, and we'll go live to New York when, in fact, they do that. Exit polls would be an interesting concept in this race because, for one thing, there is some evidence that Duke underpolls, so the question, I suppose, would be if somebody won't answer because they don't think it's somebody else's business or because they're not being truthful for whatever reason. If somebody won't tell you, a pollster over the phone, they're voting for David Duke, why will they tell an exit poller they're voting for David Duke?
It's going to be very interesting to see if and what they tell them. Also, we don't know what methodology they used, whether it was a secret ballot or they asked them. Another thing is, Sally Ann Routledge just pointed out a few minutes ago, we found out in the poll that most Louisianans thought the coverage was biased, and yet these ballots that they're using have across the top of them the three networks' names to sort of increase that problem.
Now, exit polls have an interesting history. In 1980, the networks used exit polls, and they predicted, especially it was offensive on the West Coast to many voters. They came out at 5:30 New Orleans time and said, "Good evening, Ronald Reagan is president." And it's 3:30 that time in California, and people saying, why do I need to go vote? Since then, the networks have frankly become more responsible, and what they do is have a rolling release of numbers. They'll say at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock Eastern time, they'll come on and say in Massachusetts, Bush wins, and then they'll come on an hour later and say in Mississippi, now that the polls have closed, so-and-so. My question is, I mean, have people gotten over their distrust and their dislike for exit polls in the last decade, or are they accurate now again?
Well, people don't like the figures to come out before the polls are closed, so obviously they're not releasing any figures till 8 o'clock when the polls close, and people were standing in line. They probably wouldn't have a television set that they're carrying along with them, so they probably wouldn't be able to see it. Their accuracy, sometimes they're extremely accurate, and of course there have sometimes been some that didn't do too well.
I understand that in just a matter of seconds, let's go to the network.
This is a CBS News special report. I'm Bob Schieffer in New York. Edwin Edwards has won the governor's race in Louisiana. The polls have just closed, but But CBS News estimates when all the votes are counted, Edwards will defeat David Duke by a substantial margin. Edwards and Duke wound up in today's runoff after beating the current governor, Buddy Roemer, in a three-way primary last month. Tonight, according to the exit polls, 2/3 of the people who voted then for Roemer voted today for Edwards, who also received virtually unanimous support from black voters. Again, Edwin Edwards has defeated David Duke in the Louisiana governor's race. I'm Bob Schieffer in New York.
This has been a CBS News special report.
All right, let's go get some reaction now from the man who CBS says just won this election. Let's go to Mike Ross at Edwin Edwards headquarters. Mike.
Bill, there was a loud cheer, as you might expect, here in Edwin Edwards' election night headquarters at the Monteleone Hotel. His supporters very, very excited about that projection. And joining me here to talk about it is Jim Brady, who is the head of the state Democratic Party. Jim, CBS is predicting that Edwin Edwards will be our next governor. What do you think?
I think it's wonderful. I think that if those numbers and those exit polls are correct, then we're going to have a great evening here in Louisiana. I think we're going to send the right message to the country, and I think that's very, very important at this time. And I'm very, very confident that we're going to do well statewide in other races and in the Senate and the House races. I think it's going to be a good day for Democrats.
Jim, now the Democratic Party here in Louisiana has been running its own polls this week. What have your polls been showing you about this race?
Well, our polls, showed that it would come out about 56, 55, 56, somewhere in that percentage, with still, a lot of factors to enter into it. So this is not surprising if these projections hold up.
Are you ready to call it a victory this early in the evening?
Oh, I'm going to be cautiously optimistic, but I think we're going to have a good night.
I know that the numbers haven't come in yet. I know we can't say that this is the way it's going to turn out. But let's talk about what ifs for a second. What does this mean for David Duke's future if these numbers hold up?
Well, I think and would hope that it would send David Duke into oblivion. He's a blight on this state and he's a blight on this country. And I mean, it's time that the people of Louisiana realize this, and I think they have. And I think they're sending, as I indicated a moment ago, the right message that Louisiana is proud and we're good people.
Jim, thank you very much. Jim Brady, head of the state Democratic Party. A lot of excitement here even before we get the first voting numbers in tonight. CBS projection that Edwin Edwards will win this election tonight. Back to the studio.
All right, Mike, thank you. We want to point out that exit polls generally have been very accurate. It is remarkable how close they call it, but it has been our experience that David Duke voters are reluctant to reveal how they're voting. So there is a possibility, at least, that the results could be in error, and I guess the question would be, CBS knows but did not reveal what their numbers show. So obviously CBS News is comfortable enough that they'll go with that, but whether it's the 60 or so % that Edwin Edwards' exit poll said, or whether it's less, we don't know. So
I noticed they didn't bring it up in
no, they
that
didn't.
interview. Well, let's go to Duke headquarters right now, and Mike Longman is standing by, I understand, with not Duke, but a Duke aide.
Bill Elder, they are just striking up the band here, and I guess it's the irony of the modern election age, Howie Farrell, but CBS News has called this election. They have declared nationwide that Edwin Edwards has won. The way they are putting it is by a substantial margin. They claim that Edwards will carry 2/3 of the Roemer vote and almost all of the black vote. Your reaction?
Well, it wouldn't surprise me that he got almost all of the black vote. However, we're not going to fold the tents now. We're going to wait for the official results to come in.
We were talking about turnout, and the early indications are you are happy with the way the turnout numbers are looking.
Well, we were given some turnout figures that indicate that we should do well. So we'll wait and see as the figures come in from those polling places to see if that holds true.
I understand, will be kind of keying in on the metro area. If you are close in the metro area, you feel like you will do well in this election.
Yeah, we feel if we can get a push in the metro area that it should redound to David's benefit.
What is your view on exit polls? I know they were talking on the election set about the fact that if a Duke voter won't tell somebody over the phone who they're going to vote for, why would they tell somebody at the polling place? What's your view on that?
Oh, I probably agree with that, so we're going to wait and see how that works. Here's David. Would you like to speak with him?
Representative Duke, just very quickly, CBS said no bones about it. I mean, they're striking up the band here. They just said that Edwin Edwards will win, and they said by a wide margin.
Well, again, exit polls are raw polling data, and all the polls that they're doing right now in the state that have been done, they're adding about 15 to 20 points onto what the raw data is. So how and why in the world would an exit poll be any more accurate than the raw data that we have from current polling? So I'm not the least bit concerned. I'm going to wait for the results, and we'll see what happens.
They are saying that Edwards will carry 2/3 of the Romer vote. Do you think that's possible? I know you were probably looking for at least a split there.
I don't believe that at all, and tonight will tell.
And finally, we're hearing turnout somewhere upwards to 80% in Jefferson Parish and somewhere around 67, the upper 60s in Orleans. What does that mean for you? How do you...
I think that's very good for my vote total, and I've heard this all over the state of Louisiana. So my home parish is big, and the rural and small town parishes are big across the state, and I think that means that we're going to win this election.
Representative David Duke, thank you very much. And as he did earlier tonight, as he did last night, he's saying it's going to be a very long and close night. He feels like he will slip by with a victory here at about 50.8%. His call, despite what CBS News is reporting. That's it via satellite from Baton Rouge. Back to you at election headquarters.
All right, thank you, Mike. Ed Renwick, when was the last time that an exit poll was really off?
Oh, I can't remember. There's always, like every few years, there's one that's off by a substantial margin, but most of them are most of them are correct.
I think the most classic case maybe in recent memory would be in 1984 in the U.S. Senate race in Illinois. Charles Percy was the incumbent, and there was an NBC News exit poll which projected that Percy would win, and in fact, the two-term senator from Illinois is Paul Simon now. So, but those are really the exceptions, are they not? The vast majority of these polls are accurate, especially since voters have gotten over being upset in 80.
Most of the time.
We have our first numbers, and this, of course, is one precinct of the 3,927 precincts, and it does have Edwards leading 53% to Duke's 47%. Of course, that's very, very preliminary. Let me ask, Ed, would you be surprised if it was a substantial win by Edwards? I mean, significantly higher?
Well, if he goes above 56%, then he really has to decimate, basically, the Duke vote that Duke had. Remember, Duke got 44% last year, so that would be 56-44. So after that, basically, he's decimating Duke's base vote of last year. And that could happen if black turnout was incredibly high. That could happen.
But what would have happened to those people, those 44%, that would have changed their mind about Duke?
Well, some of them could have changed their mind because some of them could have voted for him last year thinking he's not going to win, and then this year maybe thinking he's going to win. But we really don't know what the percentage the CBS poll has, first of all. And we haven't got any of our profile precincts in, so we're talking about hypotheticals here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if this is true, one would have to assume that what's happening is out of, you know, the difference may not be in terms of what people thought it would be and what it maybe is. Maybe the real difference is not what the Romer voters did, but what the newly registered voters and the people who didn't vote in the primary did.
The turnout seems to be incredibly high. I'd say in Orleans Parish, from some of these things we looked at, even based at 2 o'clock, the turnout was going to be in the 70s. And he's talking about maybe 80s in some places, and possibly some precincts up to 90. So if all the additional voters that came out, if they were disproportionately for Edwards or for either candidate, that would throw the votes considerably.
We have some numbers now from the lieutenant governor's race, I'm told, and this precinct is in, if it's the same precinct, and I assume it is, that we saw in the governor's race, this is in St. Tammany Parish, Schwegman 58%, Melinda Schwegman to Paul Hardy's 42%. In the Secretary of State's race, again, I'm told we have one precinct in that race, and Fox McKithen with 61% of the vote, which are certainly, those are the kinds of numbers he would need if he was to beat Doug Schmidt. He would need those kinds of numbers from the North Shore and St. Tammany Parish. So the computer that spits this out for us says that's 1%, but it's really one precinct.
That's really
How do you know it's the one precinct in St. Tammany?
Well, I don't. I do know, I'm told, anyway, that it's the...
I'm testing you, John.
I'm told, and that it's the one precinct in the governor's race, and I'm assuming it's the other one.
All right, standing by now at the Edwards headquarters is Eric Paulson with, I'm told, Edwin Edwards pollster.
Today, too. Bill, thanks very much. I'm here with Edwin Edwards, a media consultant, Bill Morgan. There's a lot of jubilation here in this ballroom and plenty upstairs with the governor. What was it like up there?
Well, everybody's just as excited as they can be. Obviously, elation is sort of a mild word for it.
I was on the phone with the campaign aide when the CBS News came out declaring Edwin Edwards the winner, and you could hear the jubilation upstairs. I asked the aide I was with to ask the governor his reaction. The governor got on the phone and said, I hope the figures are accurate.
Well, as you've been covering Edwin Edwards for a long time, you know that the governor never takes anything for granted, but clearly all of our preliminary indications is it's been an outstanding turnout, number one, and Secondly, an outstanding turnout for him. Looks like a substantial victory.
How long before you all will come down and declare a victory?
Well, that's really up to Governor Edwards, but it'll be, I suspect, sometime within the next 45, 60 minutes, something like that.
So a lot shorter night than in the primary.
Well, I think it'll be a lot longer night, but a lot shorter until we get the final results, yeah.
All right, Bill, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Let's go back to you in the studio.
All right, thank you, Eric. Can you believe it? About 45
He's
minutes.
saying another 45 minutes. We're always saying we're going to be here till 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. We could do a regular 10 o'clock news and say good night. These numbers could be off. I just got a message from a friend of mine who says that he has voted for Janet Gross.
Was that on the basis of the pro-Janet Gross spot or the anti-Janet Gross?
It was probably the pro, with the American flag next to her.
We need to do some business and pay some bills. We'll have more of Campaign 91 in just a moment.
It's just been 13 minutes since the polls closed, but we do have some numbers, so if we can take a look at those. I know a lot of people are looking forward to seeing them. With 23 of the 3,927 precincts, again, just 1% of the precincts in, Edwards leads with 53% over Duke's 47%. For Lieutenant Governor, Melinda Schwegman leading with 54% over Hardy's 46%.
And in the Secretary of State's race, Fox McKithen, the incumbent, with a significant margin, but again, very early returns over Doug Schmidt. This satisfies our curiosity, but really doesn't tell us much more than that at this point. In the Attorney General's race, Richard Ayub with a 68% margin over Ben Baggert. Now, what I find interesting about that is we have to assume that most of these are the same precincts, and you would expect that McKithen and Baggert in some ways would do well in some of the same precincts, but we're not seeing that in these early numbers. And in the Insurance Commissioner's race, Jim Brown with a margin over Peggy Wilson of 55 to 45, just 22 precincts.
We had a lot of calls in the newsroom from people out there watching and asking, what is an exit poll? They're confused.
Well, the national networks, they combined into doing one exit survey. What they do is they try and pick out various precincts in the state that put together would be reflective of all the voters in the state. And then what they do is hire people to go to those particular precincts, and they have ballots, and they question every so many voters.
As they exit.
As they exit the voters, as they exit from the machines and come outside, ready to go to their cars. And they ask them to either be interviewed or to fill out this sample ballot. And then they add those all up at the end of the day, put them through the computer, and they usually stop around 5 or 6 in the evening. That's why they could do it at 8 o'clock and figure out then what happened. Now, assuming they get the right mix of people, and assuming the people that come from 5 o'clock on are not greatly different than the people who came before, they work, and most of the time they work.
How does that differ from your polling?
Well, I try and figure out a number of precincts in the state that would serve as a model also, that if we knew how everybody voted in those precincts, that would be reflective to a large extent of how the whole state votes. The difference is we get the actual votes after the polls close. There's nobody can refuse to take it or anything. It is the actual votes sent into us. Whereas this other, the exit poll, is they are actually interviewing ever so many people. And hopefully they will get the proper mix of people they interview and that they will answer in the proper way.
We could liven up this program by you coming out with just the opposite prediction, I guess.
Wouldn't that be something?
If we could liven it up and we could call for an emergency room, we could have a lot of fun.
Okay. However, Sally Ann Roberts is sitting across the room, and she has someone who may give us a little perspective on all of this.
All right, Angela. I'm sitting with Dr. Roman Helenak, who is the chairman of the history department at Southeastern University in Hammond. Dr. Helenak, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thanks for having me.
You have said that this governor's race, it really involves the politics of resentment. What do you mean by that?
I think this is happening all over the country. You know, they break the economy up into quintiles of the population. And I think it's the second, third quintile, middle class and lower middle class people who are frustrated and angry. And I think part of the anger is made worse because they don't know who is really at fault. So in Louisiana, I think Duke has been able to cash in on this and blame it on affirmative action.
people who are concerned that they're not doing as well economically as they once did or as they feel they should, and they're looking for someone to blame for that?
Yeah, they're not doing as well as they did. Something happened about 20 years ago, I think with the oil crunch and what have you, and you have a lot more families now who for a while had a higher family income, but it was because the husband and wife were working, and now it's catching up to them.
So then what do you see as the residual effect of all of this? You said that we're going back to our nightmare past. You moved to Mississippi during the civil rights movement, and you feel that we may be going back in time to that period?
Well, there were times when I looked at this election and it was like a time warp, that it was back in the late 50s or 60s. We haven't had a real racist state election in Louisiana since the passage of the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act of '65. Well, we had when McKithen ran against a segregationist and won big, and that was the last time. But this, you know, I thought this was a thing in the past. Here we have an election where a man with that kind of past was considered to be a possible winner.
So times are changing, as this election shows that there are people who are very upset and they're looking for answers. Dr. Hellenack, thank you very much for joining us from Southeastern University. Back to you, Angela and John.
All right, thank you, Sally. 19 minutes now since CBS has called this election in favor of Edwin Edwards, and already the celebrations are beginning outside of his headquarters on Royal Street. And Alan Berg is standing by with that. Alan.
Well, Bill, Edwin Edwards supporters certainly believe in exit polls. Shortly after the poll was announced, a brass band struck up out here, and people literally began dancing in the streets. The street has been shut down, and they're selling beer out here and have police on either side to protect the crowd. People expect to party into the night. Now, a little bit later this evening, we expect Edwin Edwards to come out on the balcony of the Monteleone Hotel and address all of these people out here. That would be after he comes down and gives what he thinks will be a victory speech to be a little bit later this evening. But the party has already begun here. Bill?
All right, thank you, Alan. Back with more of Campaign 91 right after this.
Make plans now.
Let's look at some new numbers now in on the lieutenant governor's race, and they show, if we can go to them, that Melinda Schwegman maintains with that very slim percentage of the vote totaled her lead over Paul Hardy, 54% to 46%.
John, with that in mind, let's go out to Melinda Schwegman's headquarters now, and Andre Trevine is standing by. Andre?
Bill, I'm standing here with Jim Farwell, who did Mrs. Schwegman's media during the campaign, and Carolyn Blue Michael, who is her press secretary. Thanks for coming over. What the theme of the campaign, what were her strengths, weaknesses? What was she trying to convey to the voters?
Her answer was, or her theme was, that she felt that the lieutenant governor could do a whole lot more than has been done, that there was a lot that could be done in health care, in child care, a lot of problems that different types of people, consumers, working people have, that no other part of government really deals with. They literally slip through the cracks of government. And Melinda felt very strongly that a lot could be done by providing strong leadership and being a catalyst for ideas, on top of providing more aggressive leadership in the areas of culture, recreation, and tourism.
Now, and we were talking earlier, and you told me Ms. Schwegman decided to run after doing a poll on the incumbent that showed some interesting results.
Well, prior to running, what she did was she ran a poll to see if the voters of the state felt the same way she did on certain issues, and to see what they thought of the lieutenant governor and the type job he was doing. And the preliminary poll showed that the lieutenant governor, the current one, did not have very high name recognition. Most people in the state did not know who Paul Hardy was.
So that's how it all got started. All right, thank you very much. Both decline, of course, to talk about any numbers. So far, only 1% of the precincts reporting, as you just saw, with Mrs. Schwegman holding a very slim lead over incumbent Paul Hardy. Reporting live from the Hilton Hotel at the Schwegman campaign reception this evening, Andre Trevine. Back to the studio.
All right, thank you, Andre. And we have reaction now at Duke headquarters, and Mike Longman is standing by.
Bill Elder, of course, we had...
First campaign for state representative. I helped him in the Senate campaign. I believe this is it. Now, I don't know if you've
heard the news, but the exit polls from the network are saying that Edwards will win by a substantial margin. What's your reaction to that?
I don't believe it. The Mason-Dixon poll says David Duke's going to win it. The Mason-Dixon poll says Duke's going to win it.
Well, the people here at the Duke headquarters where the party is getting cranked up aren't ready to give up yet. We've got the band behind us, people starting to dance, and they're going to wait for the actual numbers to come in. Reporting live from Baton Rouge, I'm Dave McNamara.
All right, thank you, Dave. Well, somewhat of a surprising reaction despite the dismal news that they got at 8 o'clock about 25 minutes ago.
Let me tell you something. I got up early this morning, voted, walked around the park 3 times, went shopping because it makes me happy, and to a person, and I don't know who they were voting for, but to a person, the overwhelming thought was, thank God this is going to be over today.
People seemed lighter, happier.
No, they
brighter.
seemed in a daze. We just want it over, but let it be over today. And I thought to myself, what a sad statement, that this has been such an uncomfortable feeling for so many.
It was a very stressful election, no question about it.
I think so. But, you know, and I think there is a certain sizable portion of the public that feels that way, and it goes from neighborhood to neighborhood. Probably, I would imagine in your neighborhood there probably are many, many people of that persuasion. But the thing we forget sometimes is what Ed talked about earlier. Duke had a third of the vote almost. Edwards had a third of the vote. These people have hardcore supporters who make up close to 2/3 of the population. A lot of people in this state were very excited about their candidate, despite the fact that both the national and local media want to say it's tragic for Louisiana and all the rest. The fact of the matter is there are people on both sides who are quite comfortable with these two men. At any rate, with that observation, we'll take a break and have more of Campaign 91 in just a moment.
You see many...
And Music 3 is ready, shot 5.
There has been a bitter and an angry, divisive race in Jefferson Parish over the parish council chairman spot, and we have some numbers in on that race now, featuring Bob Evans, the incumbent, with 53% of the vote to 47% for Pat Burke. In District 3, this is the new black majority district, the first black councilman in Jefferson Parish, Byron Lee, with a slight edge at this point over Donald Jones. A couple of tax questions on the ballot in Cretna. Proposition 1, which would be almost a 2.5 mil tax for sewer maintenance, is a renewal in this case, and with just 2 precincts in, a handy margin there. Proposition 2, however, is not a renewal. It is an actual tax to levy 4 mills for fire protection, and a very similar margin, actually, 61% to 39, yes.
All right. I'm told that there's something happening at Edwin Edwards headquarters now, and Mike Ross is standing by with that. Mike.
Well, Bill, as we heard earlier, loud cheers and applause here at the Edwards election night headquarters as more numbers keep rolling in. One of the big factors in this race tonight is the Romer vote and how Buddy Romer's voters, which way they would go. Joining me here live is Senator Ken Hollis, a Republican Metairie, a Metairie Republican. I got that all backwards. Okay. Who was one of the movers and shakers in the Republicans for Edwards movement here locally. Ken, what's your reaction to the CBS exit poll?
Well, if those polls hold up, Mike, it looks like that at least 3 out of 4 voters that voted for Romer the first time went with Edwin in the second time. If that holds up, then I think the 60-40 will hold true. That surprises me. I didn't think it would go that high.
If that projection holds up, if it remains that high, what do you think this means for David Duke's future?
Well, when you consider how much money was spent on both sides of this campaign, and in particular, how much he raised, say, out of state, compare this to the race against Bennett Johnston, where he got 44% of the vote, and now he got, if that holds up, 40%. He dropped 4%. I think he would have to look long and hard at where his future is in the state of Louisiana as far as running for office, for a statewide office.
All right, now, Edwin Edwards has made a lot of promises to Buddy Roemer's supporters to get their support in this runoff. Do you think Roemer's supporters, you and others like you, will hold his feet to the fire to make sure he lives up to those promises?
Well, let me tell you, the only promise he made to me was that he wanted to do something to correct the record. He wanted to do something to leave a legacy. That's the only promise that he made to me, and I made a comment to him that I'm going to hold his feet to the fire, and he doesn't need to worry about Bill Lynch. There's going to be some legislators like me that are going to keep our eyes on him and make sure that he does what he says he's going to do, and I've talked to him several times since then, the first meeting, and I really believe he's going to do it.
Senator Hollis, thank you very much. Back now to the studio.
Thank you, Mike. Well, the moment we've been waiting here for is Ed Renwick and his prediction. We're coming at 8:30 now.
It looks like Edwin Edwards will be elected governor. We have half of our profile precincts in, and he's doing very, very well. We don't have enough to get an exact percentage yet, but he seems to be doing very well. It looks like he will be elected governor.
Over 52?
I think he will be over, yes. Looks
and you
like
say
that.
very, very high black turnout.
Extremely high black turnout in the black precincts that have called in so far. Some black precincts are running way up in the 70s, some even to the 80s. Black turnout so far, the precincts that have come in, is higher than white turnout. Now, whether that will continue when we get the whole modeling, I don't know. But black turnout is incredibly high.
What, didn't you expect that, though, Ed?
Yeah, we thought a turnout would be very high, but black turnout statewide has never been equal to white turnout. Consequently, it has never exceeded white turnout. So this is unprecedented.
But they've never had a candidate like this to vote against ever either.
No, they've never been mobilized like this, but of course in the Senate race and in the first primary, black vote was 6 to 10 points less than white vote.
Now, the Edwards people earlier were talking about their exit poll and saying that it was above 60%. Can you tell from, do you have enough numbers to know if that's possible, that he may in fact be above 60%?
Not yet, because we only got half in. I want to get more than that before we get a percentage.
Well, that would constitute a landslide.
Oh, well, yes, 55% is a landslide, yeah. If he goes above 55, and he could well do that.
Now, if you are thoroughly confused, which would be completely expected at this point in terms of trying to keep these polls straight, the exit poll, again, is something done at the polling place. It has a margin of error. You are dealing with hard numbers, actual votes counted at certain precincts that, taken together, represent the state of Louisiana.
A major landslide, a 60% or 58%, 59%, would say what to this country about David Duke?
Well, it would show that he obviously lost in a landslide to Edwin Edwards. And it would show that if you want to get the black vote out, they have an incredible black turnout. Duke is doing well with the white vote. So
what do you think he will end up with?
I would think he's probably going to end up with half or more.
And he did about 57% to 60% in the U.S. Senate race.
Yes.
So he has dropped off.
He might have dropped off a bit.
Points.
He might be around. We haven't got enough in yet, but he might have dropped off a bit. He might be around the same.
And when we say he's dropped off, I mean, if this is a little premature, but if in fact these percentages hold up, he would still get about 600,000 or perhaps even more than 600,000 votes that he got last year. So what you'd have here is he has the same voters roughly as he had a year ago. It's just that other voters have voted, and apparently predominantly for Edwards.
As turnout went up, he didn't get the appreciable percentage of the turnout. In other words, with the turnout going way up, he's not getting his percent. And of course, that's largely because the turnout that has gone up is in the black community. And obviously, he's getting only a small portion of that vote.
Why? What's different about this race than the U.S. Senate race? Is it people relate to the governor's office? Nobody took David Duke seriously a year ago? What's different this time if this is in fact true?
Well, I think last year a lot of people felt David Duke couldn't win. And then he got 44%, and people said maybe he could win. And then this year, of course, is for the governorship, and the governorship is the office in Louisiana. It's considered much more important legislative or senatorial position. It's the job. And so the combination of those two things, I think, really energized the electorate.
Do you think at all that people were saying, after hearing so many reports of the economic possibilities?
Angela, I hate to interrupt you here, but I'm told that Ben Baggert is available to us right now, and Cheryl Hickman is standing by with him. Excuse me.
Bill, we are here uptown where Ben Baggert, the Attorney General candidate, has just come in. Ben, in the initial reports we're seeing, it does not look too good for you. What are you hearing?
Well, that's 1% of the vote, and if those trends continue, we obviously won't win the election. I've also seen some polls during the last week that way, Ed, that showed us trailing. So we would be surprised if we do win the election, because, you know, Richard Ayoub has run an excellent campaign, as have we, but his resources and finances were significantly greater than ours.
Yeah, what happened there? He outspent you like 3 or 4 to 1. Was it just that hard raising money?
It was very difficult for us to raise money. It's tough for a candidate with my record and my views to raise money in a Louisiana political race.
Explain that.
I don't want to get into it too much, but, you know, I've supported environmental measures and matters such as those, which cut you off from a lot of funding. And I have to, it's not strictly that. There were other reasons, you know, that Richard Ayoub was able to raise significantly more money than me. But the election's over, and we needn't talk about that anymore. And I just hope that we do well and that we win. And above all, I'm glad that this election we went the distance and we went down swinging, if indeed we do go down.
Yeah, what happens to you now? You had a fairly substantial debt from the Senate race, and then get into this one, and that takes your resources even further. If indeed you do not come out of this race the victor, what do you do next?
Well, I'll practice law, and I'll probably pay off that Senate debt in the first 3 weeks of practicing law again. You know, I've had a very interesting 22 years in the state legislature, and a very satisfying one. But I feel like I'm graduating from high school right now. There's a whole new world out there, and it was time for me to finish my career as a legislator and do something else. So if I'm Attorney General, that'll be new and exciting, and I'll enjoy it very much. And if I'm not Attorney General, it will be very, very new and exciting, just practicing law exclusively once again, as I did many years ago. And that debt from the Senate race, I'll be able to pay that off in just a few weeks from private practice.
Very good. We'll settle in and watch the rest of the returns. We'll go back to the studio now. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Cheryl. I thought for a minute we had a concession speech, but apparently not. Campaign 91 continues right after this.
We'd like to take a look now, if we could, around the area at some of the individual parishes to see how they are voting. And we begin with Orleans Parish, and the numbers you're seeing here are actually absentee ballots, which are being counted. 8 precincts showing Edwards 84% to 16% for Duke. We don't know where those are coming in from, but a very large margin. In fact, the number's just changing. There are a few more precincts in, 83% for Edwards. In Jefferson Parish, in the governor's race, Edwards with 58% of the vote, and that is 30% of the vote counted. And again, we don't know exactly where they would be coming in from. David Duke would do better in some areas of Jefferson than some others, but if Edwin Edwards takes Jefferson Parish, or even does well, respectable in Jefferson Parish, this certainly would be a landslide. On the North Shore in St. Tammany, Edwards with about 21% of the vote counted. Again, significant in that we remind you that we don't know exactly where they're coming in from. The vote would be different, for example, in some of the more upscale neighborhoods around Mandeville and Covington, but David Duke took St. Tammany in the U.S. Senate race last year, and he's not doing it here in the early going. In St. Bernard Parish, David Duke winning there, as he has done in the primary for the governor's race and last year in the U.S. Senate race. That would be expected, but again, not the margin that he might have expected against Edwin Edwards, 56% to 44%. And those are the numbers statewide. 10% of the vote in, which is not enough to be able to tell where this thing is going to end up in terms of percentage, but does certainly give us, with that kind of a margin, a real indication. And already Edwards with about a 36,000, just shy of a 36,000 vote margin with 10% of the vote in. And I believe we have some numbers, yes, from the lieutenant governor's race. Melinda Schwegman maintaining her margin over Paul Hardy, 54% to 46%. I don't think anybody would have predicted a week ago that the lieutenant governor's race would be closer than the governor's race. But it is at this point. Secretary of State Fox McKithen, the incumbent, this could be very close as the night goes on. We'll have to see McKithen in a fight with New Orleans Attorney Doug Schmidt.
For Attorney General, Ayub is leading 68% over Baggart's 32%. We, of course, just spoke to Baggart. He hasn't given up yet. For the Insurance Commissioner, very, very heated race there between Brown, 58%, and Peggy Wilson of New Orleans, 42%.
Doesn't look good for Peggy Wilson at this point.
No, but again, that's only 9% of the vote showing.
It's a little early, although some of it, those numbers indicate, for example, that McKithen is doing well, and she's not going to get exactly McKithen's vote, but if she is 13 points down from what Fox McKithen is, that's not a good sign in the early going. More of Campaign 91 in just a moment.
We welcome you back to Campaign 91. Even though Ed Renwick has called the governor's race, saying that Edwin Edwards is the new governor, there certainly are many other issues on the ballot. And in Orleans Parish, it was a renewal of the Sewerage and Water Board millage. And we see that that is, with 10% of the votes in, a resounding no, 59% to 41% saying yes. Of course, this is the issue that the Chamber of Commerce and the Business Council came out against because it was strictly for property owners.
And it lasted for 10 years.
And lasted for 10 years.
Yeah. All right. I'm told now that Eric Paulson has been upstairs and spoke with the governor, and he's standing by with word of that. Eric.
All right, Bill, there's a crush of people coming toward the stage here and the podium here at the Mont Leon Hotel. I just spoke with an aide up in Governor Edwards' suite upstairs, and he says the governor is going over his speech just before he comes down here. It'll be several minutes before he does come here, but a lot of dignitaries, politicians are around the platform now, so it could be any minute that the governor will be coming here to make his victory speech. As I said, he was going over that speech, touching up his makeup, and doing a number of last-minute phone calls before he goes on to announce that he is in a victorious position tonight and the next governor of Louisiana. So we'll wait and see what happens. It could be any minute, so we'll be standing by here for that. Bill?
Eric, what's the reaction there? Is it one of disbelief at the large numbers, the large percentage of the win?
I think a lot of people were expecting large numbers here. They were surprised to see it come down this fast. A lot of people were expecting a long night as we had in the primary, but when the figures came as fast as they did around 8 o'clock when the polls closed, with the exit polls, the mood was up here, and it's stayed up ever since. And obviously when the governor gets down here, there'll be no letting down on that.
All right, Eric, as we await Edwin Edwards coming down to speak to the supporters, let's go out to Duke headquarters right now, and Mike Longman is standing by with a Duke aide.
Bill, we are here with Kenny Knight, an assistant campaign manager with the Duke campaign. First, how did it go today? How did you do in terms of getting out your vote? How do you feel about the effort today?
Well, we did our homework. We're very positive, very upbeat about the election. You know, we worked very hard, almost 24 hours a day for the last several months. So we're pretty positive about the outcome.
We're being told that CBS has called this election. Ed Renwick has called this election for Edwards. We are told that Governor Edwards is getting ready to make a victory speech. Your reaction?
Well, I didn't get to see the exit poll, but you know, traditionally David flies below radar, quote unquote. So we don't put a lot of credit in that. No.
What they are saying is that that Edwards is picking up 2 out of 3 every Romer voters. Are you surprised by that?
No, but they got less than 10% of the vote turned in, so I don't put a lot of credibility in that. I really don't. You know, we think we will pull off by 51, 52%.
Kenny Knight, thank you very much. And again, we'll be talking to Representative Duke, the candidate himself, right as CBS announced that exit poll result. He, too, indicated that his people don't typically respond well to polls. We're not sure exactly what he's doing right now. We believe he's up there watching the numbers, trying to see where they are coming from. trying to do his own look at the numbers. As you may well know, David Duke is a fairly good pollster himself. He's fairly good at crunching the numbers, and we suspect that that is what he's up to right now. He has not yet addressed this crowd. Several hundred people here waiting to hear from the candidate, watching several TV monitors. So far, the atmosphere here still tends to be very positive. They are, of course, hoping for the best despite all of the predictions to the contrary. Reporting via satellite from Duke headquarters in Baton Rouge, Mike Longman, Channel 4 Eyewitness News.
All right, thank you, Mike. And we, too, are standing by here waiting for Edwin Edwards to come down. We're told he's preparing his speech, and hopefully that will be before the next 15 or 20 minutes, perhaps half hour. More of Campaign 91 continues right after this.
Mice.
Stand by, results fall.
In this family.
A very, very interesting evening, and Dr. Ed Renwick says even more interesting at this point because of the numbers are even surprising you.
That's right. I have 80% of my profile precincts in, and Edwards has 62.5% of the vote. So he's doing extremely well. And turnout is an astounding 82%, which would be an all-time record for Louisiana, and would be one of the highest elections actually in the United States. This is an incredible turnout.
We take that for granted. That almost is something you have to let sink in. I mean, we talked earlier about, I did a little interview for a friend who works at a radio station in St. Louis, and the callers on the show were calling him and say, you have 80% turnout you're talking about? These are states that get, you know, they get 40% turnout and they think they've accomplished something. I mean, it's staggering.
Yeah, we're running about double the national average in this election tonight. This even surpasses the 78% turnout in Duke's election to District 81, which is the highest turnout in history in a state legislative race.
So, Ed, your numbers pretty much are tracking the exit poll of Edwin Edwards' people. They were looking at 62.9. You're calling what?
Oh, really? I didn't know it. That's what what they had. Well, then if that's what they were looking at, they're tracking very close.
Weren't you also saying that they're almost evenly split among the white folks?
Yes. Right now, Edwards and Duke are splitting 50-50 the white vote. And that, of course, is totally unacceptable for Duke to be able to win anything. So that he is doing 7 to 10 points worse among whites than he did against Bennett Johnston.
Well, Ed, this goes against the poll that you had on last weekend. Something happened between when your poll was taken and what happened today. What happened during the week, do you think, that may have changed all of that?
Well, we had Edwards in the lead, but we didn't have him with a lead of this magnitude.
Yeah, you had 52%.
52 one way, 54 if we distributed, and 56 if the people that hated him stayed home.
But 10 points.
So now we're talking about 62%. I mean, this is a real incredible
This is the question.
But we're talking about higher black turnout than white turnout, which, of course, we never figured in the poll data.
But you kept saying 34% white, and this is 49. I mean, the numbers are incredible, but the question I was trying to ask earlier was, do you think that those people who might have changed their mind about David Duke, or who said, I'm going to vote, who said they weren't going to vote earlier, might have been impacted by the number of people coming forward saying how we were going to be economically impacted as a state, how lots of people could lose their jobs? Do you think that ultimately, they kept talking about the pocketbook issue, finally people said, well, we can't risk it?
Well, there are basically three things: the moral argument, the economic argument, and people voting for him in protest but feeling he couldn't win. Obviously, they thought he could win, so that was taken care of. The economic argument obviously had never been used before. And then some people, especially probably a lot of the Romer voters, switched over to Edwards because they felt because of Duke's past they simply could not vote for him. So I imagine those three things put together. Then, of course, the ultimate thing and the most important thing tonight is the immense black turnout. I mean, this is unprecedented, never been in history before, that the black turnout is quite possibly higher than white turnout. And that, of course, with virtually all black votes going for Edwards, that is what is throwing in all these additional, what is really the frosting on the cake and is really putting them way up high.
Okay, let me really push it to the edge then, Ed. If David Duke chooses to run for Congress, let's say, we have heard that scenario, would the black turnout be as great to fight him against that? Would the number of whites, almost 50%, vote against him, as you're saying has happened tonight?
Well, we don't know. First of all, what congressional district would he run in? If he ran in a congressional district that had hardly any blacks, then obviously black turnout would be somewhat irrelevant because there wouldn't be any blacks there. But if he only splits the whites 50-50, then of course he would be in difficulty. Of course, it depends where he gets where the whites are 50-50. Some places in the state it might be still much higher than that for Duke. We don't know that.
Ed, I hate to interrupt you, but I'm told that Edwin Edwards is coming down now to make his victory speech, and let's go down now to Mike Ross.
Bill, I'm down here by the podium. We're getting conflicting reports as to exactly when Edwin Edwards will be coming down. We've heard everything from 15 minutes to 45 minutes. A few minutes ago, we heard 2 minutes. Then we heard 9:30. A lot of commotion going on here. All of his supporters are crowding up around the podium area. All the cameras are ready. His security force isn't ready, but his chief of security told me it may be 9:30 or so. They're doing an awful lot of preparation for a guy who won't be down here for another half an hour, though. I'd be willing to bet he'll be down in just a few minutes. The mood here, very, very excited. Edwin Edwards supporters had hoped for a victory tonight, hoping for a big, big victory, as was the candidate. Edwin Edwards spoke only briefly to us on his way from the Mont Leon to a nearby restaurant tonight. When I asked him how he felt, he said simply, "I feel good." His aides obviously feel good tonight about the way things are going, and we'll have the candidate's words for you just as soon as he comes down to let us know how he feels. Back to the studio.
All right, thank you, Mike, and we'll be going back to you, of course, just the second that Edwin Edwards comes down and steps out from behind that curtain. But we have late returns right now, and John and...
Okay, and we're going to have those in just a moment.
Before we get to that, you have something new?
We just got the black turnout percentages on the profile black precincts. Approximately 80% turnout in the black precincts, 10 points higher than white turnout. That has never happened. Wow. And that is giving, of course, Edwards a huge vote.
Let's get back to her question before we went to the Edwards revote, and that was whether or not he could transfer this popularity to another job, another election, say for Bob Livingston's job, for instance.
Well, we've heard Bro.
Bro or Livingston, either one.
Well, the other name that they throw out is Jerry Huckabee in Monroe, who is in North Louisiana, where Duke's base is. So I mean,
and don't the voters have a history of giving a losing candidate, say like Bennett Johnston, a job after he misses the big job, the governor's job?
Basically, a candidate to win has to run in either an open seat or against someone who's not popular. David Duke has been very lucky in that. An open seat from District 81, Bennett Johnston was unpopular. And of course, Buddy Romer was unpopular, which allowed him, of course, to get in the runoff. So if one of these congressmen like Livingston or Huckabee were very popular, then if anybody, Duke or you or me or anybody runs against them, you have an extreme uphill fight because people don't want to throw out someone they like just to put someone else in. They retain people they like. Basically, you have to have a person who people don't like, and that's the key. Remember, in the Bennett Johnston race against Ellender, Ellender died.
Yeah.
And thus there was an open seat.
But you had
a totally open seat.
But you had John McKithen, who was a popular guy, running against...
Oh, he wasn't popular then. That was after the Life magazine scandals. And his popularity was way, way down. He left office as a very unpopular governor.
Let me ask you, I mean, a lot of people have talked about, and he has denied that he wants to be president of the United States. A lot of people argue that and say, never will he have more national attention than right now. Do you think he might give it a go? Would he have a chance?
Well, he's splitting the white vote 50-50, so obviously if he ran in some southern primaries where most all of the vote would be white, or a large chunk would be white, he obviously would have a chance at getting a chunk of the vote. But since he is not doing near as well tonight as he figured on doing, then the bloom is off the rose.
I'm told that there's been some immense security problems at Duke headquarters tonight, bomb scares and that sort of thing, and Dave McNamara is standing by, I think, with the head of security for the Duke campaign.
That's right. I think one of the more unusual things we've seen in this campaign has been the extremely tight security since the first primary. Bill Cranford, you've been coordinating a lot of that. What are the reasons that we've seen such extreme measures to keep security so tight?
I wouldn't say the measures have been all that extreme. The measures here are just about the run-of-the-mill for any governor campaign or governorship, because you have a lot of radicals, you have a lot of things going on, and it's normal. We have maybe a little more controversial situation here than normal, but other than that, everything is running very smooth. We're not having any problems. We're checking everybody like everybody always does.
Now, as an example, we've had bomb sweeps and that sort of thing throughout the room tonight as a precautionary measure.
Every time you're going to have a bomb sweep in every governor's race. That's normal. There's nothing unusual about that. We're only conducting normal things here.
And you've got tight security, invitation only to come to this party here in Baton Rouge.
That's procedures, right, yes.
And how many people do you estimate are you allowing in tonight?
In the whole party, we've got an estimate of probably 600 people at the most. That includes all the security, too. I mean, the media, too. I think we got more media than we got anybody else.
Bill Cranford, who was head of security for the David Duke campaign tonight. Bill Capo was out in the crowd, and he also was checking on what's happening with tonight's action here at the Duke headquarters.
The parking lot of the Baton Rouge Hilton Hotel turned into a science fiction mushroom garden as more than a dozen satellite trucks aimed their transmission dishes skyward.
Okay, line number 1.
Television crews from all over converged on the hotel, waiting to instantly beam to their audiences the outcome of the election and David Duke's reaction.
After we bring this in, I mean, that's just one thing. What about the game?
Like I told you, get what you got to get.
I mean, okay.
Security is extraordinarily tight, as surprised members of the media learned. Trying to enter the small ballroom where the party will be held, photographers and reporters were only allowed through the door singly or in small groups under the intense scrutiny of security teams.
Man, it takes so long to get in there. I don't know what...
Out front, Duke supporters gathered. About 800 are being allowed in. Tickets are required. Those with tickets were thrilled, like Estelle Scherer of New Orleans.
Duke, see, I put it up in my hair. I forgot my hat, so I said, well, let me put this Duke stick up in my hair.
What are your thoughts right now? You look very excited.
Oh, I tell you, I just know he's going to win.
Security teams are poised for a long evening with lots of activity. So are members of the media, and especially David Duke fans, who can't wait to see the outcome of this race. Back to you.
All right, apparently a problem with the audio at the end there from Mike. But,
oh, well, live television.
Yeah, it is.
We have some numbers in on the Jefferson Parish races. Of course, the hotly contested race for Council Chairman Bob Evans maintaining a lead at this point over Pat Burke, 55% to 45%, and the meaningful numbers because 3/4 of the votes are counted, so Evans with a solid edge at this point. Byron Lee and Donald Jones in a very close race to become the first black chairman, or excuse me, first black council member in Jefferson. 23 of the 38 precincts counted at this point. The one councilman who had no opposition was Ed Munez in this race, and he is now with Sally Ann Roberts.
Well, thank you so much for joining us and waiting here to talk about. You must feel very comfortable this evening, Councilman Munez. You ran unopposed. You didn't have to face the murderous campaign that so many of your colleagues have. And, in fact, many of your colleagues will not be returning. Several of them will not be returning to the council this year.
Well, approximately half of them, 3 out of 7, won't be coming back.
Yeah.
And it is a good feeling. I'd like to thank the people for their faith in me and for their continued support. and I hope I don't let them down. I'm going to work real hard.
What's the message you think that's going out to the council from the Jefferson Parish?
It's a very
voters?
simple message. They want to change in the way the council conducts itself.
What kinds of changes do you think will now be on the horizon for Jefferson Parish?
I think government's going to be operating in a more open fashion. It's going to be operating in a more business-like fashion. People are going to make deals that are good for the parish and not good for the councilman. It's not going to be who can get 4 votes to raise, to get campaign contributions. I think people have spoken very loudly that those who pursue that type of career in politics aren't going to last very long.
And you're talking about term limitation, perhaps giving the president veto power. These are things that will be thrown out to the voters?
I think that's inevitable, and what I suggest is that we have a constitutional convention where the delegates, or a charter convention rather, where the delegates would be elected and not appointed.
What do you think about Evans' race tonight? It appears at this point that he will be returning to his seat, but after spending a lot of money on this race.
Well, it's been estimated Bob spent $500,000 on this race, and first, if the lead does hold, I'd like to congratulate him, and I look forward to working with him over the next 4 years. But that race was about as equal as the United States versus Iraq. I mean, you had one man spend $500,000, and the other man had trouble raising enough money to buy lawn signs.
So the message is clear that many people in Jefferson Parish are dissatisfied with the status quo. They want to see some changes. Now looking at the governor's race, if the figures hold, it would indicate that Edwards is going to carry Jefferson Parish. He's carrying it now. We'll only know at the end of the evening whether he's going to indeed carry it over David Duke. Were you surprised by that?
Yeah, I didn't think he'd carry the parish, but I got the feeling today as I drove around to different precincts that he was doing very well. And I think that at the last minute the people were concerned that all the things that they were hearing on television and radio might really happen if David Duke would be elected governor. I think it caught up with him at the end. But I'm very excited about Governor Edwards' election because for one thing, he's promised that he would help us with our new baseball stadium. We were trying to bring professional
minor
baseball.
League?
Well, minor league, but hopefully, just like we had the exhibition games that brought the Saints, hopefully with our minor league park, we can eventually get major league. But right now, we're trying to bring back the Pelicans, and we hope that when they play ball in 1993, Jefferson Parish will be the home to minor league, but professional baseball.
Is that one of the campaign promises that Edwards made to you personally, that he's going to continue with that funding that was promised by Governor Romer?
Myself and Councilman DeVinny and Ron Maestri from UNO had spoke to Governor Romer when he was in office, and he made a commitment to help us. And Governor Edwards told us in the last month that he would maintain that commitment, that he would be interested in throwing out the first ball when the stadium opens.
What's your reading on Duke tonight? If he does lose by a landslide or a considerable amount, what do you think that says about his future hopes of public office, perhaps going against Livingston?
Well, I think you'd have to check the precincts that Livingston would run in against him in Livingston's district, but I believe this, that he ran a good race for Senate, but he got beat. He didn't run a good race tonight. Apparently he was going to get mauled tonight, and if he don't win one soon, he loses credibility. He only won the House seat by 1 percentage point against, and he had the homestead exemption, a lot of things working for him in that race. You said that to me before we went on that perhaps the voters wanted to flirt with David Duke, but they didn't want to dance with him. I think it's something like that. I think he better win one soon or his days are numbered. All right. Well, thank you very much, Ed Munez, for joining us from Jefferson Parish. And back to you.
All right. I'm told that with 40% of the figures in now in the race where Peggy Wilson is concerned, she is going down to defeat tonight with only 42% of the vote. Do we have the figures on the screen? No. But I'm told in any event that she is about ready to throw in the towel, and Lynn Cannon is standing by at her headquarters. Lynn.
Bill, we do have Peggy Wilson with us, councilperson Peggy Wilson from New Orleans. It looks like at this point you are out of the running. Do you think you were hurt by the heavy turnout and Jim Brown running a lot of times in the same group that Edwin Edwards is, being a Democrat?
Well, let me tell you, I'm very proud of my campaign. I'm proud of what we've done here, and I think that it's going to get tighter than it is now. But I do think that the Democratic ticket is something that we had to deal with, and it was very difficult.
What is in the future for you? You finish your term as a city council person and then maybe another run at state office?
I have, 2.5 more years on the city council, and I'm telling you that I'm known as somebody who gets up off the mat and keeps fighting. They fought with me when I first came on the council, and we finally delivered limited terms, and you haven't heard the last of me yet.
All right, Peggy Wilson, thank you very much. And also you hear her supporters cheering for her. At this point, it looks like she's going to lose in her first statewide race. We'll have more on this story a little bit later. Back to you in the studio.
All right, thank you, Lynn, and thank you, Peggy. More of Campaign 91 continues right after this.
Here's another confidence buy from in New Orleans. Special buys on the 92 Escorts. Get the 2-door Escort or the Escort hatchback, the 4-door Escort, and the Escort wagon. Take your pick and all for only $99.95. You heard right, only $99.95. And all of these 92 Escorts have air, automatic transmission, stereo, rear defrost, power steering and brakes, and only $99.95. So buy with confidence and buy for less at your 15-minute dealer, South Broad of Washington.
In this family, we believe in tradition. Oh, nothing fancy. Just the simple things that show how much we care about each other. Like owning a security before need funeral plan. The security plan, I made all the decisions in advance. Now my family won't have to worry. That's important to me. And the benefits you select are guaranteed. Call a security plan funeral home in your neighborhood.
In Metairie, call Tharp Sunheimer Tharp on North Causeway or Lamanna Pano Fallow on Veterans Boulevard.
Save a Center, we're your neighborhood food store. There's something in the air at this special time of year. A holiday feeling of good times and good cheer from your neighborhood. Save a Center to old friends and new. We make this holiday wish our very best to you. Save a Center, your holiday food store.
Make plans now for Tavern on the Park's Evening Among the Oaks. Dinner and a horse-drawn carriage ride through the celebration in the Oaks. Call Tavern on the Park for more information.
The Saints meet the Chargers, Sunday at 3 on Channel 4.
Well, now almost everyone, I understand, has declared Edwin Edwards the winner. AP has recently come out. Our own Ed Renwick did almost an hour ago. And I think the one thing that everyone has talked about in this race, regardless of who they were for, was the tremendous amount of anger and hurt feelings. And I've heard so many stories of people who, on one street, it would be a Duke Edwards family split. And I think there has to come a time very quickly where we have a healing process for us to go forward. And I just wonder, from your viewpoint, if that can realistically be done in a short period of time.
Well, the old cliche says time heals all wounds. So I think it will come. Whether it will come in a week or 2 weeks or 6 months, I don't know. But it will come, no doubt about that. Imagine 4 weeks ago tonight, I think David Duke, if the election were held the next day, would have been elected governor. And tonight he apparently has been defeated very, very soundly. So you're probably talking about changing 20 points of the vote in just 4 weeks from the last time we all sat here together. So in a rather short period of time, there can be immense changes. We have seen it occur. And so probably in a few more weeks or months, people might all be back together again, and it won't be any great problem at all.
David Duke has brought up many issues that have been discussed in kitchens and in other places, and that is problems with our welfare system, et cetera, and oftentimes in a racial overtone. But what will happen to these issues now?
Well, some of the issues are popular. Like in the WWL poll, we found that only 28% of the people in the state of Louisiana favored affirmative action. In other words, I think Edwards has passed, and the economic argument is what really hurt Duke tonight. The economic argument, because look at in New Orleans area how well Edwin Edwards is doing, and actually in places like Jefferson Parish where Edwin Edwards was not exactly very well liked. Indeed, statewide, about 53% of the whites can't stand Edwin Edwards, and yet the vote is being split almost 50-50. I mean, there's only about 10 or 15% of the whites love Edwin Edwards. In other words, all kinds of people came around to either the moral or the economic argument.
They voted with their pocketbooks, is what you're saying.
Well, the people who did it on a moral argument did, and the people who did an economic did. But the combination put together a huge chunk of votes for Edwin Edwards, even though they didn't necessarily like Edwin Edwards.
You know, I'm back to Angela's question. The interesting thing that occurs to me, she says, where did the issues go? The irony here is that in Mississippi, Kirk Fordyce embraced many of these issues, and of course didn't have the baggage that David Duke had. His critics say that he is a closet David Duke. He says, you know, he's very offended by that. But the point is that part of the irony here is that with all this publicity, David Duke may have helped to elect a Republican governor in Mississippi when, in fact, he goes down to defeat tonight, a candidate who embraced a lot of his issues and was able to overcome Governor Ray Mabus, a a powerful incumbent in Mississippi.
But Mavis was basically like Romer. They didn't get along with the legislature. They weren't that popular. They were viewed as aloof. They both went to Harvard. They were viewed as elitists. They both had the same problems. I think basically that if Duke didn't have the problems that he had, then he would have done much better. I think Duke's past is really what is really causing him incredibly serious problems.
All right, well, before this evening anyway, there had been a lot of speculation that if David Duke had lost this election by at least a slim margin, he might have next year taken on Senator John Breaux. I don't know. We'll have to see what's said about that as the night goes on. But Senator Breaux is with Sally Ann Roberts now.
Yes, Senator Breaux, what about that? Are you concerned at all that perhaps the next person that Mr. Duke runs against will be you?
No, not really. I mean, we're talking about this election tonight, and it's obvious, I think, that David Duke is going to lose by a very large margin as all the returns are coming in. I think the people of Louisiana were asking the right questions in this election, but they rejected David Duke's answer. His answer was only slogans. It wasn't plans or programs, and people want more of that. I mean, there are real problems out there, and politicians have to recognize them.
So there's some national implications in all of this.
Of course, there's a David Duke in every state waiting to come out and use the same type of rhetoric to address these problems, and I think what they see here tonight is that it takes more than just slogans. I mean, people are basically fed up with the government. Particularly the middle class are sick and tired of paying for programs that they think do not work, and I think less advantaged people and minorities are sick and tired, really, of getting programs given to them that are not solving their problems. But David Duke was not offering any answers. He was just talking in slogans, and he was really appealing to the worst in America, and I think that Louisiana did a good job tonight.
What about the '92 election? What does this say as far as the presidential election?
Well, I think it says that if any politician does not recognize the frustration that is out there, particularly with middle-class people in this country, that they are political ostriches that have their heads buried in the sand. We have to offer solutions and real answers to these problems. People want to think that government is working, and I would suggest that right now the feeling is that government is not working very well.
All right. U.S. Senator John Breaux, thank you very much for joining us.
All right, thank you, Sally and John. Now, over to Edwin Edwards' headquarters. We're still waiting for him to come down and make that victory speech, but Alan Berg, meanwhile, is out in the street sampling some of the feeling over there. Alan.
Well, Bill, the crowd is continuing to grow here. You can see the people dancing behind me, holding up the Edwards signs. The Algiers brass band is over here just a little bit this way if we can get past the signs there. They've been playing for about the past hour. And if you look over here, you can see that we have probably about 200 or 300 people that have gathered out here. They blocked the street on either end. Beer is flowing, the mood is very upbeat, because these people feel like this has been a great victory for them tonight. Not only have they won, they've won big. And as you can see, it's a very happy band. A minute ago, they were playing a song about Edwin Edwards to the tune of the Saints Go Marching In, saying Edwin Edwards is going to go marching in tonight. That is what's happening in front of the Monteleone Hotel, and now we'll go back to the set.
All right, thanks, Alan Berg. It looks like Mardi Gras.
It does.
We'll have more of Campaign 91 in just a moment.
Our excellent selection of business telephone systems just got better. Now you can come to First Communications Company for Essex service from South Central Bell. Essex service can be used with a wide variety of telephones, including your present office telephones. First Communications is your one and only call for business telephone service. We do everything the way it used to be. No one else in New Orleans offers a package like we do. Call and see. First Communications Company, when the best is all you need.
It sure was fun to go to the ground patty back then. And it's even better now because we have what you're hungry for plus a whole lot more.
Barbecued ribs, grilled chicken, USDA choice steak, succulent seafood, and of course the popular ground patty.
So come to ground patty for a whole lot more.
Hungry ground patty.
And a whole lot more, yeah.
Les ballets africains. Pure
sensation.
Live at the UNO Lakefront Arena Wednesday, November 27th. Tickets now on sale at Ticketmaster and UNO box office.
Friends, I know what the question is. Can I really save money on a car or truck at Dove Herring Ford, Lincoln Mercury, and Picayune? Well, friends, you need to come on over to lower prices. Let me show you. 1992 Ford F-150 pickup truck, air conditioned. After the rebate, you can buy this 92 truck for $10,588. Only at Dove Herring Ford, Lincoln Mercury, and Picayune. That's the answer to you. If this emblem is not on your truck, you probably paid too much.
We are still getting conflicting signals from the Edwards camp, but we're told that his appearance is imminent in the Monteleone Hotel, and we are expecting that sometime here in the not-too-distant future that Governor Edwards would make his victory speech. But before and as we wait, let's look at some new numbers in the lieutenant governor's race. And Melinda Schwegman now expanding her margin over incumbent Paul Hardy, and the numbers changing there, 56% to 44%, with now getting close to two-thirds of the vote in, so it appears as though Schwegman will in fact defeat the incumbent Paul Hardy. On the state level, the incumbent who did not have competition this time was State Treasurer Mary Landrieu, and she is now with Sally Ann Roberts. Sally?
And Mary Landrieu was the only statewide officer, elected officer, to run unopposed this time around. And thank you so much for joining us this evening. What is your feeling? I heard you clapping when the results were announced in the lieutenant governor's race.
Well, it hasn't been declared yet, but Melinda has run a very strong and very aggressive campaign for a very important office, and she did an excellent job having started late. What we would say would normally be late, but she did a wonderful job, and I think she'll be an excellent lieutenant governor and a wonderful addition to our team in Baton Rouge.
4 women in the legislature now, and that is about to change when the swearing-in occurs in January.
Yeah, and Sally Ann, the real story behind this election, obviously the most important is the governor's race, but clearly there's a story about women progressing and moving forward. I believe that if the numbers prove out, we may elect 12 women when all is said and done, which would triple our number in one term, which is not an easy feat, besides electing a lieutenant governor as a female, and also there's another strong candidate running in one of the other offices.
So Louisiana would no longer have the fewest number of women in the legislature at the title that it has held for years now.
Absolutely, and it would get us off that bottom rung, which is very important.
What has brought about the change?
I think people want change, and women represent that to them. And I think women serve well, work hard, and are, for the most part, very qualified when they run. And I believe that it's going to be a welcomed addition. I think men want to see more women elected and holding office. I've had many men in the times that I've run come up to me, and other women have shared with me, encouraging me. And I think that that's very important. The more inclusive our government can be and representative of all, parts of our community, the better.
We've talked a lot about healing tonight. Angela was talking about that earlier. There is a divisiveness that exists right now in the community. There's a pain that exists. There's anger on both sides. There are minorities who object to being portrayed as on welfare when the majority of blacks are hard-working individuals. And when you look at the statistics, the people who are receiving the federal assistance, by and large, are white, not black. How do you go about healing now?
I think it's important to work at it. I just don't think it's going to go away. I believe that we have to talk very factually, and those of us that are in leadership positions need to lay out facts that people can see, that more people are white or not black that are on welfare, that the stereotype of a African-American woman on welfare is very unfair to African-American women, the stereotype of the welfare queen. Not to say that there aren't many problems with that system that people are angry about, even the people who are receiving the benefits. But we have to work very hard at it, and it's going to take some effort.
Yeah, I have to interrupt right now because David Duke is coming down.
Thank you.
Pardon me for interrupting, but David Duke is coming down now, presumably to make a concession speech.
David, are you ready to concede now? I'm going to make a talk right now. You're going to concede, Dave? Yes. David Duke just walked in front of us here entering the hall. As you can probably see the lights of this area, we asked him if he was going to concede. He said he was heading to the stage to make a talk. I asked him again, David, are you going to concede? And he answered yes. He's making his way toward the stage here in the Hilton Hotel. A crush of press around him as he enters from the left-hand side. He's now on the stage, waving to the crowd of supporters. We probably have about 400 or 500 people who have turned out, supporters of David Duke, for this invitation-only affair at the Baton Rouge Hilton. David Duke being surrounded by his top aides near the podium. The Reverend Jim Rungstad, who he has named during the campaign as his spiritual advisor, the man who he says has helped him the most in his development of his Christianity. Waving to the crowd. A much quieter crowd than we've seen at most of the rallies during the last few weeks of the campaign. They've been watching the news reports along with our viewers at home, and they've heard the projections that Edwin Edwards apparently is going to be the winner in this election.
Could we hold, get your attention for just a moment? I'd like to introduce Reverend Rongstad to lead us in a prayer, please. Reverend Rongstad.
This is the Reverend Jim Rongstad, former ordained Lutheran minister.
I know it's very difficult to bring you all to a sudden silence, especially because you're anxious to hear David Duke. But would you please bow your heads in prayer with me? Gracious and everlasting Lord, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, we thank and praise you for giving us the gift of David and the evidence of his Christian faith. For when he was vilified, he did not so in return. When his character was attacked, he spoke only kindness. When his motives were impugned, he turned around with a smile and patted the opponent on the back. Oh Lord, if there's ever been evidence of a man's Christian faith, it has been in the person of David in the last month. And now tonight, we ask that you would give him continuing blessings of your Holy Spirit.
Edwin Edwards has just taken the stage here at the Monteleone Hotel. Several hundreds of his followers waiting anxiously for the victory speech. Let's listen to what the governor has to say.
Thank you. I want... I could not thank everybody, but I do thank everybody. I especially want to thank my daughter Anna and Victoria and Stephen and David, all of whom worked with me in this campaign in various capacities, all of my staff, all of my friends around the state who did so much work in so many ways, all of the precinct captains and all of the poll watchers and all of the commissioners at the polls, all of the various groups who joined with us in what is undoubtedly the best campaign ever run in Louisiana. I will hold a press conference tomorrow at 11 o'clock to make some announcements about the transition. I will not tonight try to do any housekeeping announcements because of the excitement. But I do want to ask you to, last favor I'm going to ask you for a long time, I want to ask you to allow me to read a prepared statement to the people of Louisiana and the people of America.
If we don't turn around our state and our nation, then we will lose them. We've got to begin to change our priorities in this country. The time has come to begin to heal the liberal welfare system that's causing crime, causing poverty, causing drugs, destroying the very basics of our land. The time has come to help people become more responsible in their lives and teach people responsibility. and all the things that go along with it. This is a
forward that Louisiana is a good place to live, a good place to work, a good place to bring jobs, a good place to educate our children, a good place filled with good people. Let everyone everywhere know that I will work every day of my term to be as good as the people I serve, and that I will work every day of my term to provide a government that is as good as the people it will serve. I will make our people proud of our state, proud of their governor. I will heal our wounds and bring our people together. No longer will Louisiana be last. Tonight, we went to the top of the class. Tonight, Louisiana became first. First to turn back the merchant of hate, the master of deceit.
Over the last few weeks, we've been sending a message, and that message is now being heard. And next year, you'll hear that message be expressed all across America by many people in one sort of life. We have sent that message. Now, I want to say this. The time has come in Louisiana to heal whatever divisions that have been created by our media in this state against the people. If I would have been elected, the sun would still shine tomorrow, and the ozone layer would still be intact. And the sun may still shine, or the heavens may cry tomorrow when Aaron Evers is elected. But the time has come to work together. And I must say, Aaron Evers is a veteran campaigner. He knows campaigns. He knows how to campaign. He knows how to raise money. He knows how to push the right buttons. And it's our task at this point. It's our task at this point, ladies and gentlemen, in a Christian way, tonight, before we go to sleep tonight, to say a prayer for him and say a prayer for the future of our state and the future of our country. I will do that tonight. I hope you all will join me in that prayer.
Campaign for President of the United States. Who will make the next assault on decency? Tonight, Louisiana won. But if the next merchant of bigotry is free of the apparent vulgar signs of the KKK and the swastika, well, the people simply reject again as we have done. Or will our nation accept again the stereotype of the welfare queen? Does Willie Horton live on? Or will that symbol of hatred wear a Star of David, or a Roman collar, or speak in a foreign accent? Indeed, who will be next? America, be on guard. Tonight, we in Louisiana learned a serious and important fact about ourselves. We learned that we possess a love for each other more intense than we ever thought. We learned that when one of us in Louisiana is attacked for the color of his skin or how we worship our God, none of us is safe. You, my citizens, have set aside factionalism. You have set aside political parties. You have set aside suspicion, and you have stood with me at the Rubicon. You selected me as your instrument of renewed commitment, and every day of my life I will remember what you did, and every day of my term I'll be dedicated to making our government better. your life better, your family better, and our reputation as a people better. Our task now is to heal ourselves. The job ahead is too big, too demanding, too tough to tackle if we are not united as a people, all working in one direction for the betterment of our beloved Louisiana. Tonight, I am your elected governor, but I am asking to be your friend, whether you voted for David Duke or Buddy Roma or any of the other candidates who ran in this race. Those of you who wanted to send a message, be assured that I got the message, and I will work to make your state office and state government more responsive to you and to your wishes. From the fishermen of South Louisiana to the businessmen of our cities, from Farmerville to Abbeville, from Lake Charles to Lake Providence, from Newellton to New Orleans, to those who chose David Duke and Buddy Roma, to those who voted for me willingly and unwillingly, to Republicans and Democrats, to those of you who are white and black and Hispanic and Asian and
I do hope all of you enjoy yourself this evening, because I want you to know this is the beginning, not the end. It's the beginning of a long step. And I don't know whether it would be, I have no idea what role I'll play in the future in terms of turning this state around and this nation around. But I know I will play a role, but I do know that this nation will come back to the ideals of our founding fathers who will do that, who will save us.
We are a wonderful and good people, and we have proven it on this day. Now we must continue to show the world that truth. I want all of those who for so many months have predicted with dire concern the possibility that a David Duke could be governor of Louisiana to now say to the nation that we are better than that in Louisiana. We have led the way. We would not follow that dark road that 100 years ago brought us all the problems we've suffered for 100 years. We would not follow again, and I challenge the rest of the nation now to follow us, because we are first tonight. In the history of our state, no one has ever been honored to serve you as 3, much less 4 terms as governor. As one who comes to you from the sharecroppers farm of central Louisiana, educated in the public schools of our state, dedicated to the people of our state, I want you to know that 4 years ago I stood here, and with great pain in my heart and sadness in my voice, I said then that God has not finished with Edwin Edwards. My task is not finished. There is still in me a desire to serve and a capacity to lead, and that is the mantle you have given me tonight. I will not let you down. Thank you. Thank you. Thank y'all.
Governor Edwards leading his supporters in a cheer of Edwin, Edwin. Security people are keeping very tight reins on him. We won't be able to talk to him at this point. Edwards told his followers tonight that Louisiana has proven that it's the state of reason and compassion, and he wanted to send a message to the rest of the nation that the voters of Louisiana had turned aside what he termed the merchant of hate and the master of deceit. A big victory for Edwin Edwards tonight, and a big, big victory for the thousands of people who supported him and the thousands of people who have voted for him reluctantly in this election. Back now to the studio.
I guess. All right, thank you, Mike Ross. And we will be back with more of Campaign 91 right after this. All right, we just heard a victory speech by Governor John McKiffen. John McKiffen, am I living in a time warp?
Historically.
Edwards. He goes back to
well,
John
it was
McKiffen's
28
time.
years ago. Seems like yesterday.
You know, it's kind of early to be thinking like that. Huh? Early in the evening, I meant. Anyway, Belinda Schwegman is about to come out in a short while, and I'm not confusing her with John Schwegman, but she's about to make a victory speech tonight, and we'll be going there in just a short while. But it was strange to have one conceding and one making a victory speech at the same time. That was very unusual, and it's a shame that it happened that way. But
and it was also interesting, just the parts that we could hear. Obviously, they couldn't hear both at the same time when Edwin Edwards was really sending a message to this nation, saying, "Watch out," in essence, but also being very positive and making Louisianians feel good about themselves. And this goes back to the thing we were talking about a little earlier. This has really been a gut-wrencher. It's been a heartbreaker on a lot of different levels. And it was good to hear David Duke talk about healing as well, and that probably is the next step.
I think it will be interesting to see now what Edwin Edwards does with this victory, because you had a situation, and there we see outside the Monteleone Hotel where this party has taken place.
He was supposed to go outside, John. I don't know that he has, but Alan Berg is standing by, I think.
Well, Bill, we're in the middle of a huge crowd trying to get to him. He is by the Algiers Brass Band. He just took the microphone from them. If I can get up, I'll get a mic to him.
I want you to know how much I appreciate all you've done for me. This is the most fantastic election. We put everybody together. We had a great coalition. We're going to be working together in the transition and working together for 4 years. We're going to make things good for you, and I'm going to appreciate that. I just want you to know we have sent a message to America that Louisiana is better than they thought we were. We want the rest of the nation now to follow our lead and do what we have done, and that's reject that kind of a campaign. You have a good time. Have a good time. I love you and I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Go that way. Governor, did you expect to win by this larger? Did you expect to win by this larger margin?
Yes, I said the other day on radio, 58-42. It's better than I thought.
What will be your message to David Duke supporters? How do you bring them back to you?
By telling them that I understand their concerns. I try to address them. We're going to be working to correct the problem, but we have solutions, not just the litany of the problem.
Speech. I don't know if you heard that or not.
What's that?
David Duke just gave his concession speech. I don't know if you heard that or not.
What do you have to say? I didn't hear it either.
He said that those that voted for him are not going to go away, and that it should send a clear signal to you that he does have an agenda that some people think is very important.
He's losing ground. He's lost ground since his last election. He is losing ground. His people are wonderful, but they just don't buy his message.
What's your protocol once you get into office? What do you plan to do first once you get into office?
I can't hear you. Hey, Diane, how you feeling? Thank you very much.
What do you plan to do first when you get into office?
Well, I'll have a press conference at 11 in the morning. I'll make some announcements then. Thank you.
Okay, so that is what the governor had to say to this very jubilant crowd out here. And he, as you can see, it's quite chaotic. He was supposed to come out on the balcony above us here, but he decided instead to come down to where all the people were celebrating. He made his way over to the band. He congratulated the band. State Senator Dana Bourgeois came over and congratulated him. And the people down here were a little bit, I think, surprised to see him down here, and also very excited. Quite chaotic. He did say that he'll have a press conference, as you heard, at 11 o'clock in the morning, and at that point, then he will go over some of the specifics about what he's going to do in his campaign. I'll go back to the set.
All right, thank you, Alan. Alan Berg working the crowd quite nicely out there.
And navigating well. A little practice for Mardi Gras. We have some new numbers in on the Secretary of State's race, and Fox McKithen, the Republican incumbent, is expanding the lead he had when last we saw these numbers, maybe 15 or 20 minutes ago, 51% to 49 over Doug Schmidt, who in fact now joins Sally Ann Roberts, and a little early to call that race.
It's too early to call the race, but still it must be a little bit gut-wrenching, a little disappointing at this point for you, Mr.
Well,
Schmidt.
it's not, I don't know what the numbers out are, but I hate to be behind at any time.
Yeah, but it has been a neck-and-neck race throughout this campaign. The fact that you made it into the runoff, having had only one other election under your belt running for the District C City Council seat here in New Orleans, it must be surprising to many people that you have made it this far.
Well, I'm sure it shocked the world, yeah. Most of the people in the state were surprised, but the fact of the matter is we had some really good media, we had some good ground troops.
The Fox commercials. How did you come up with that? And do you think those were, evidently, you made it into the runoff, so evidently they were successful, effective for you?
Oh, yeah, they were very effective. In fact, we got some national media attention on them. But it goes back to the Democratic Party helping me, and Jim Brady, Jim Nichols, Hal Kilshaw, the rest of the Democratic candidates, and just getting out there and working. I think we outworked Mr. McKithen in this campaign, and we don't know, like I said, with the rest of them out, so we don't know if we did it enough. But I think this sends a message. If we shouldn't win this time, we might go after the Fox again. So we'll have to just see.
Do you feel that there's an anti-incumbent mood that is catching on, that has caught on here in Louisiana? Romer, and also the fact that you have Duke, Hardy, Romer, McKithen. These are individuals who were formerly Democrats, all decided to switch to the Republican Party. What impact do you think that had on this
Well,
race?
I think it had a very negative impact on those opponents because of the fact that you know, they looked as opportunists and career politicians more than just people that were wanting to serve the public. And I think that really hurt them a lot.
If this election goes your way tonight and you are elected as Secretary of State, what are some of the changes that you would make in the office?
Well, first thing, I'll be there. Mr. McKithen hasn't been in his office too often, so I will be with a hands-on control. Second off, I'm going to tell the classified employees that we're not going to do any polls out of the office. This is strictly going to be run as a business. I'm a businessman. I want to run it as a business and make sure it's run very well without me using it as a political stepping stone in any type, because I wouldn't want to run for another office once I had won that office.
And you talked about during the campaign, a 24-hour toll-free line.
Yeah, I'd like a 24-hour toll-free line access to the Secretary of State's office.
Yeah. So what's your prediction? Are you going to be able to come through this evening on top?
It depends where the numbers are. It's in God's hands now. I did the best I could. My workers did the best I could. My wife, my family, has been a year and a half. My mother, it's campaign staff, everyone. You know, it's in God's hands now.
All right. Doug Smith, thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Appreciate it.
All right, thank you, Sally and Doug. One person who is not waiting to see whether they have won is Melinda Schwegman. And let's go there now with Andre Trevino.
Bill, Melinda Schwegman, a victorious Melinda Schwegman is entering the ballroom here at the Hilton Hotel. The last we heard, 80% of the precincts reporting she had 57% of the vote to Paul Hardy's 43%, so you can certainly understand the jubilation you hear in this room. This is the first time we've seen the candidate this evening. She wanted to wait until something was definite before she came before her supporters and all of her campaign workers here. And as you can see, she's going up to the podium right now. And everyone came armed with umbrellas and Schwegman bags, which were her campaign signs this year. Melinda Schwegman apparently here now to claim victory in the race for Lieutenant Governor against incumbent Paul Hardy. I'm sure John Schwegman is up there at the podium. So far, we've not seen him this evening. He's probably in the crowd there.
first-class campaign. Well, obviously, I didn't do it alone. And most of those people are up here, and I just want to say thank you so much to all of them. They did a magnificent job. Those of you who expressed confidence in me early on, I can't thank you enough. It meant so much to me that you had the confidence to come out early with someone who had never run for political office and do what we did. I think it's great. But mainly to those people who voted for me across the state. There are a lot of people that I made close friends with all across the state, and I am so thankful. If they're not here, they know who I'm talking about in Monroe and Alexandria and Shreveport and all over the place, and Lake Charles and Lafayette, everywhere. And we just, it was great. We had a ball. But for all of those people who gave us that support, I want to say I'm just overwhelmed. I'm very grateful to you. We talked a lot about issues. I said that I thought the Lieutenant Governor could do so much more, and I assure you I am going to do so much more. We were concerned about, thank you. I talked a lot about children, about child care. I can assure you that when the first session of the legislature, this next session, I will be involved in that child care legislation that I spoke about throughout my entire campaign. We talked about senior citizens and health care. And with the Louisiana Health Care Authority, I assure you that I'm going to be working with those consumer groups, with those agencies involved with options for senior citizens on how to handle long-term health care, and I will be there. I want those senior citizens to know that today I saw it when I was campaigning, and yesterday when I was at a senior citizen center, that I told them I wouldn't forget them, and I assure you I won't. I will be there working for that legislation that we so badly need. And for all the... For those people in the tourism industry, I assured you I will proudly promote Louisiana and Louisiana tourism. That has to be the most pleasurable thing in the world, because believe me, I saw while I was campaigning just what we had to offer, and it amazed me that I didn't even know all the...
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to also pat you in the back for what you've accomplished here tonight. Very few, when people look at the numbers, and people look at the percentages that we won in this election, the numbers by themselves don't tell the story. The numbers we received were absolutely amazing in the history of politics in our state, and really in our country. Because we had almost every organized establishment force against us. You know, when the anti-establishment candidate supposedly ran in Pennsylvania, he had the full force of the Democratic Party behind him and many millions of dollars. When we ran in this race, we ran the most independent campaign the state's ever seen. We were outspent by millions of dollars. We had no major political endorsements. We had no powerful political machinery. Now, we ran a race based on principle, a race that came out of the human spirit. We ran a race that was fantastic. And all of you should be proud of what you've done. And all of you, ladies and gentlemen, I know are thankful, as I am, to that force and that power that stirs in any of us. And that
really meant so much, because when you said, we think you're qualified and we know you can work with that legislature, that meant a lot to me. And I received a lot of endorsements, and I am very grateful for those, and will be very excited to work next year in that.
And there it is, Melinda Schwegman accepting victory in this race. Last check, 80% of the precincts reporting around the state, 57% for Schwegman, 43% for Paul Hardy. She's thanking all of the people, especially the ones who came on board with her in the very beginning, when she said not everyone thought she had a chance of winning this race or a chance to unseat a strong incumbent like Hardy. There you have it, Melinda Schwegman claiming victory in the race for Lieutenant Governor. Back to the studio.
All right, thank you, Andre. And we will be back with more numbers as Campaign 91 continues.
We have a number of numbers in now on some of the state representatives races and state senate races, and there were a number of incumbents. Joe Severio looked to be in serious trouble 4 weeks ago at this time, and this is not over yet, but Severio, the incumbent, with the lead over Jeff Diaz with about 54% of the votes in. In Senate District 20, this is Leonard Shawbear's old district, and his son Marty appears to be going on to a handily defeating tonight Paul Brown close to a 2-to-1 margin in the Terrebonne-Lafourche area. In House District 53, which is in Terrebonne-Lafourche, Bergeron with a solid edge, well, in fact, with 100% of the precincts counted now, Bergeron pulling off that victory. In House District 54, there's no incumbent in this district. Jesse Guidry did not run this time, and Mitch Theriault with 100% of the votes in, 100% of the precincts, a 52% vote. This is a very interesting race featuring Ralph Miller and a challenger, Joel Chasson, and 50-50 at this point. Ralph Miller, the powerful chairman of the Criminal Justice Committee in the House, in the fight of his life. We'll keep an eye on that one. In House District 57, Joe Accardo, longtime incumbent, holding on to victory tonight over Richard Holmes, 54% to 46%. In House District 58, in St. John and some of the river parishes, Roy Quasar, 62% margin over Pam Como. In House District 72, in Tangipahoa and St. Helena, another incumbent who, again, seemed to be in some serious trouble 4 weeks ago, Buster Gazzardo, hanging on to a margin that is a little early to call him a winner there over Jimmy Meadows, but with the edge at the moment. Dennis Hebert, an incumbent who got only 37% of the vote in the primary at this point, with enough to win, but still 20% of the vote out. Steve Pugh with still a chance in Tangipahoa Parish. In District 86 in St. Tammany, Ed Scoggin has been the representative in House District 76 since it was brought to St. Tammany Parish after the 1971 census. He loses tonight to Suzanne Mayfield Krieger, 53% to 47%. In District 86 in Orleans and Jefferson, Steve Windhorst, the winner tonight over incumbent Terry G. Windhorst, the son of longtime state senator Fritz Windhorst, and a comfortable, impressive victory tonight, 61%. In District 87, which is a new black majority district, the incumbent N.J. D'Amico White, not able to hold on to that. He had a margin of a lead earlier in the evening, but Kyle Mark Green, the brother-in-law of Representative William Jefferson, winning there. In St. Tammany Parish, a new district on the North Shore, Pete Schneider, the winner, 57% of the vote. In House District 96, in Orleans Parish, Ed Murray, who is a friend of Charles Jones and law partner of Charles Jones, the man who stepped up or ran for and won a judgeship, Murray winning in House District 96 in the city. In District 100, this is another new black majority district, and Louis Ivon, the white incumbent, endorsed by many black politicians, but in trouble at the moment. David Armstrong has run a very aggressive campaign, and he has a 4 percentage point edge at this point. Now, in District 102, that's a race featuring Troy Carter and Stephen Rock Ruiz. Carter with the edge, winning with 33 of the 33 precincts and 56% of the vote. So that is a quick look at how things stand in some of the House and Senate races around the state. And we see some incumbents tonight going down to defeat.
All right. Peggy Wilson is one of them, and I understand that she's about ready to concede, and Lynn Cannon is standing by now at Peggy Wilson's headquarters.
Bill, Councilperson Peggy Wilson has just stepped to the podium. She lost tonight to Jim Brown, former Secretary of State Jim Brown, and she is about to go on. Her followers are here with their cha-ching signs, I should mention that. And she's just kissed her husband, and she's about to go on, and we'll listen to her speech.
We ready? Everybody ready? All right. Thank you all so much for being here tonight. It's a great night for me to see all of you here.
and I can't tell you how my heart overflows with just being overwhelmed with all that you have done for me. Most of the results are in now, and it's clear that we are not going to do what needs to be done tonight. I wish that I had different news to report, but I want you to know that all of us here have a right to be proud. No matter what we say, we have a right to be proud. We should be proud. Cha-cha-cha. We should be proud that we passed term limits for the city council in New Orleans. We should be proud that the people, black and white, joined together and said no to the entrenched politicians. We said, no, you will not have your perks. No, you will not stay in office forever. No, you will not be guaranteed re-election. We passed term limits, and we should be proud. We should be proud. We stood up to the political machines. We said no deals and meant it. We said no politics as usual and meant it. We said no to the cronies, the fat cats, and the kingpins. We should be proud of our campaign. We told the truth. We stood up for what is right and decent. We stood up for the people. And let me say, I am so proud of what you have done. No campaign is easy, and each one of you have worked through it all. You have been with me everywhere around this state. You've walked your neighborhoods and put up signs. You've handed out the Peggy Wilson story and licked stamps purchased with your own money. Some of you would rush home from work, feed your families, and show up at my headquarters and work well into the night. I am proud of you, and I thank you. I am proud of my husband. He has been through it all. He is a saint, as I have said many times before. He's been understanding, supporting. There were times when the only time I would see him would be brushing our teeth together over the double bowls in the bathroom in the morning. When things got tough, I knew he was behind me all the way. I'm proud of my family, my children who worked on my campaign, and who had excessive term limits. Peter, Bonnie, Gordon, and Carter, you kept me going because I knew that it's for your...
We're here now with Representative David Duke, eloquent in, I guess, admitting defeat tonight, but you said this is not the end, this is the beginning. Tell us about it.
I think that it is. I think we've started something now nationwide, and people are starting to talk about my issues all across our state, all across the South, all across the whole country. And that makes me feel good and know that all the work was not in vain. And someday these ideas will really win.
I think some of the observers who watched the last week or so were saying that Edwards was working on the undecided Rover vote and that you weren't. What do you think?
Well, he was working on everything. He had the money. He poured massive amounts of money into mailings to every special interest group, every member of every special interest group, from the National Guard, to the nurses, to the ophthalmologists, everybody. And we just couldn't compete with this massive onslaught. He had every endorsement, every powerful bit of money. I think we accomplished miracles with the vote total we did receive.
You spent a good part of this campaign disavowing rumors that you'd run for president. What now?
I'm not planning to run for president. I mean, I'll look at all my options, but I have no plans. I got to sit back now, spend some time with my daughters, just take a look at my life, where I want to go from here. But this campaign has not been about a political career. This campaign has been about really affecting things in this country, you know, and really starting to get people aware of some issues. And in that way, I've been very, very successful, and I'm thankful.
Finally, what do you say to the analysts who say in the first primary people could cast a protest vote for you, but not have to worry about you really getting elected, and now this time maybe they were a little afraid?
I don't think so. I think what happened was we just met an onslaught
of support. I mean, onslaught of opposition. You know, we just were overwhelmed. The picayune in New Orleans was unbelievable, unbelievably venomous for days and days and days. It was free publicity for Reverend Edwards, and the worst kind of attack, personal attack imaginable. And it was just too much. People just couldn't bear it.
What are you going to do tomorrow?
Well, I plan. What is tomorrow? Sunday? I got to do a couple national shows. I want to go to church either in the morning or in the evening. I want to spend some time with my daughters. My father's in town, Colonel David H. Duke, and I'm looking forward to spending that time relaxing and looking forward to the future.
Representative David Duke, thank you very much. I do.
And Mike, you have been very fair, and I appreciate it.
I do appreciate it. Again, Representative David Duke taking a moment out to talk with us. He said he wanted to spend his night with his supporters tonight, but gracious to talk with us just briefly here. Back to you in the studio now.
All right, thank you, Mike. And we'll be looking at some numbers in the outlying parishes right after this.
And we're back with more of Campaign 91. We heard Edwin Edwards talk about his task is not finished. He had won this for Louisiana. He put together a remarkable coalition from Edwin Edwards' point of view of business leaders, people who had never been with him since 1971. I guess my question, Ed, would be what happens now with that? There are still legislators in the House and Senate who are not his allies and in fact are his enemies. Business leaders, this was a marriage of convenience, of necessity from their point of view. Does he have the historic opportunity that he has talked about to build on this, or does this all unravel and it's Edwards versus the conservatives all over again starting now?
Well, he's got a tremendous opportunity, the greatest opportunity he's had since 1971 when he was first inaugurated. He's got this big victory. He's got all these disparate groups that are behind him. Of course, many for various reasons. Some of the people can't stand him. But they voted for him. He won. There's going to be this euphoria. The legislature obviously is going to be extremely impressed that he got 60% or more of the vote. He does very well in dealing with the legislature. So and he realizes this is his fourth term. He's not going to have too many more. If he's going to leave his mark on history, this is it. So I think, being a smart man, he's going to try and really do something that will keep the groups together. Very few politicians enter office and destroy their support. Obviously, that was one of the problems Romer had. But most people build on it. They don't lessen it. So I think that he will try and keep it all together. Now, at some time it might come apart, but I think he will really work, and he's very effective at putting coalitions together, work to keep it together and get something accomplished. Now, the problem is some of these groups are going to have opposite things they wish, and there, of course, he's going to have difficulty. But he's a very smart operator, so he should be able to put together some kind of a program that can keep people on board and say, well, you can't have everything, but at least you can have a piece of cake. You can't have the whole cake, however.
I'm curious to see whether Bill Lynch takes the job or whether it's still offered tomorrow.
Well, I would be very surprised if it weren't still offered, but whether he takes it or not. I think that was one of the main issues that people talked about. And immediately, Edwin Edwards comes out and says he's invited to stay on.
But he cannot investigate universities. Universities,
right.
But nothing happened ever since. I think Bill Lynch will probably move on.
I would think so.
And someone else will come into that position. But I think that would really be a bit much, have the two of them sit down and discuss things. I mean, that really would be a tremendous reconciliation.
Well, it even points up a weakness with the whole, I mean, what many people applauded Romer for putting the office in, but the Inspector General is only as good as the governor, and I don't mean that as it being anti or pro-Edwards, but I mean the suggestion has been made that perhaps it should be part of the Attorney General's office or should be a separate office in some way appointed. What Inspector General is going to investigate the governor? I mean, what are you going to do? Investigate the governor, your boss, and then go, look, I've just discovered you've broken these laws, and I'm about to make it public. And how does that work?
I don't think that worked very well. Obviously, you couldn't have a job to investigate your boss. Who would hire somebody to do that? I mean, that would be crazy. But basically, what Lynch's job was to look around through the government and see if everything was going all right, and Edwards could have that. But they're so incompatible because of all their fights, I would think probably that really they wouldn't wish to continue that, and there'd be somebody new in the Edwards administration.
Well, certainly people who have come forward for Edwards have hoped that he will keep the health authority, that he will take care of some of the things that he has mentioned, the Child First program that Buddy Romer, he is committed to that. And I know we have all heard a resounding, we're going to be watching Edwin Edwards very closely. We're going to be like gravy on rice to make sure that he goes the straight and narrow. It'll be interesting to see if people
he did some flip-flops. And was it one day he was going to reconsider shell dredging of the lake, and then he saw a pole or something?
I think what happened is he got on television on this station and another one and said that I don't have a big problem with shell dredging, and I think that, you know, and in fairness here, shell dredging, we think of shell dredging as a monumental environmental issue, and it is, but it's also local. You know, there are people who are very serious environmentalists all over this state, in Alexandria and Shreveport, and shell dredging means nothing to them, and you can't expect a governor to be in touch with every issue. But I have a feeling that what happened was people in his campaign got to him and said, wait a minute, this is a powder keg you're sitting on top of, and that was probably why the reversal the next day. But he did that. He did on the same day the Bill Lynch announcement, subsequently the charity hospital health care. Do you think, Ed, that we'll see some Romeristas, some full-fledged Romeristas prop up in his administration?
I think very few, probably some. But there's always some. Some of the Romeristas already went to work for him, remember, the next day after the election. So there'll be some, but I wouldn't think there'd be a large number of them.
All right, gentlemen, Alan Berg is standing by very patiently outside of the Edwin Edwards headquarters, and let's go to him right now for some final thoughts tonight. Alan.
Well, Bill, the celebration down here is one that befits a landslide victory. During the last 20 minutes, many of the people that were in the ballroom have spilled out here into the street because they do expect Edwin Edwards to make an appearance in the windows above here, and it's been ticker tape has been raining down. Edwin Edwards stickers have been tossed out from up there. It's been quite a celebration. Amazing to think that 3 weeks ago there were a lot of people that were following this campaign that felt that David Duke had the momentum going into the runoff. So I think when the final verdict is written, people will talk about all the people that came out and said that David Duke would be bad for the economy of New Orleans. I think that is what's getting them into this area. Now we'll go back to Mike Ross, who's in the ballroom. Mike?
Alan, I'm here with Eric Paulson. The party is continuing inside the Monteleone, and Eric, I think that Edwin Edwards supporters tonight are very glad for this big victory. They may be a bit surprised. I don't think Edwin Edwards was one bit surprised by this victory tonight.
No, he wasn't. As I mentioned at the beginning of our program tonight at 7:30, the Edwin Edwards exit polls, the ones that they were tracking there, were saying 62%, 62.9%. They were really going for a high figure, higher than they had in the beginning of this campaign, as we pointed out. Also, Alan was saying a few minutes ago that the crowds are getting thick over on Royal Street, waiting for the governor-elect to step out and address the crowd. I talked to an aide in his suite upstairs. He said that the governor's pretty tired right now. They've already taken the ties off. They're crashing, relaxing, and just going to make an evening of it now.
Edwin Edwards, as has been pointed out, made a lot of promises in this campaign, and I think a lot of the people in the Romer camp are going to be watching him very, very closely at the state capitol. I think the next step will be Edwin Edwards' cabinet to see who he appoints to his top post. Having spent a lot of time at the state capitol, I doubt that we'll see a lot of Romer people there. But the real first question of whether Edwin Edwards is sincere about what he says, I feel, will be at the first legislative session early next year, next spring. And that's where we'll see if he'll keep some of his promises to leave some of the reforms that Buddy Romer instituted alone, as he promised during the campaign.
And that, of course, is what he said in his victory speech tonight. There is a new Edwin Edwards, he's saying. There is a new coalition in this state. He says he has brought this state together. There is a bonding that he feels he can accomplish here. He can do more, he feels, in this 4 years than he has ever before. Probably one of the greatest victories in Edwin Edwards' life here tonight in an unprecedented fourth term in office.
I think, too, it was a matter of pride. He has 4 years. He alluded to it up at the podium tonight. 4 years ago, he had to stand here and concede defeat.
Yes.
Tonight, he was able to stand up here and claim an overwhelming and, according to some people, a surprising victory over a very strong candidate.
Also, one of the things I was talking with an aide about the other day, there is this thing with an ego, not that a bad ego, but a person who has had a career that has been filled with controversy. Then he has a chance at, as we said, an unprecedented fourth term, and to make this a term where Edwin Edwards can go down in history as one who brought this state together, who will try to bring it out of the economic mire it's been in for quite some time. And if he can accomplish those things, Edwin Edwards will go down in history in a light that I think will be most favorable to him.
And I think the biggest question tonight is what happens to David Duke. Will this be the end of David Duke, or just another launching pad for him? Every time we think he's gone, he comes back.
And we've heard so much speculation from political pundits here tonight who are saying just where Duke will go. Will he try and run for the presidency? Will he take a shot at the U.S. Senate again? All those things up in the air. David Duke still is a very powerful voice. He's had a very powerful discord in this state. Also, Edwin Edwards had told me on the set on Friday, he was on the Eyewitness Morning News, that David Duke made him a better candidate, that he really pulled some of the issues forward that needed to be addressed. He just was the wrong messenger at this time.
All right, Edwin Edwards the winner tonight, and we'll see from this point on if he keeps those promises he made during the campaign. Back now to the studio.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much. And we will be back with a complete recap of all of the day's races after this.
And good evening once again. We're going to recap the election results and bring you sports and weather in the next half hour. We begin, of course, with Edwin Edwards winning tonight an unprecedented fourth term as Louisiana governor.
He was obviously very thrilled, and he had this to say.
You, my citizens, have set aside factionalism. You have set aside political parties. You have set aside suspicion, and you have stood with me at the Rubicon. You selected me as your instrument of renewed commitment, and every day of my life, I will remember what you did. And every day of my term, I'll be dedicated to making our government better, your life better, your family better, and our reputation as a people better. Our task now is to heal ourselves. The job ahead is too big, too demanding, too tough to tackle if we are not united as a people, all working in one direction for the betterment of our beloved Louisiana. Tonight, I am your elected governor, but I am asking to be your friend, whether you voted for David Duke or Buddy Romer or any of the other candidates who ran in this race. Those of you who wanted to send a message, be assured that I got the message, and I will work to make your state office and state government more responsive to you and to your wishes.
And although David Duke was the loser, he was sure to say that this was not the end, but a beginning.
Vail to Abbeville.
The candidate may have lost, but the message goes out loud and clear across Louisiana and across this whole country, ladies and gentlemen. And that message is very clear, that if we don't turn around our state and our nation, that we will lose them. We've got to begin to change our priorities in this country.
Okay, it was also a victory for Melinda Schwegman tonight as she won the lieutenant governorship. With 96% of the precincts showing, Melinda Schwegman winning with 58% of the vote over Paul Hardy, the incumbent, only 42%. And this is what she had to say.
That you had the confidence to come out early with someone who had never run for political office and do what we did. I think it's great. But mainly to those people who voted for me across the state. There are a lot of people that I made close friends with all across the state, and I am so thankful. If they're not here, they know who I'm talking about in Monroe and Alexandria and Shreveport and all over the place, and Lake Charles and Lafayette, everywhere. And we just, it was great. We had a ball. But for all of those people who gave us that support, I want to say I'm just overwhelmed. I'm very grateful to you.
Lieutenant Governor-elect Melinda Schwegman speaking with her supporters tonight as she defeats incumbent Paul Hardy. And apparently one of the factors tonight in that higher black turnout perhaps being 10% higher than white turnout on a proportional basis, is that a lot of the Democratic candidates are helped. I believe we have some numbers now in the Attorney General's race, and we see that Richard Ayub in a landslide is the winner over Ben Baggert, 69% to 31%. In the Insurance Commissioner's race, City Councilwoman Peggy Wilson losing to former Secretary of State Jim Brown by a 60-40 margin, almost 100% of the votes in now. The real question on the statewide level tonight has been Secretary of State, and that one is getting closer as the night goes on. We look now at what is a matter of about 14,000 votes separating Fox McKithen, the Republican incumbent, and New Orleans attorney Doug Schmidt. So we may have to keep an eye on that one over the course of the next half hour. And we'll have more of Campaign 91 in just a moment.
The real superstore. The big question isn't about what we sell. The big question isn't about how huge our selection is, or how...
And we're going to continue to look at all of the election votes. And we're going to look now, very long night. Orleans Parish, the Sewage and Water Board millage renewal. And it was 61% of the people saying no to 39%. Next we have Council Chairman in Jefferson Parish. Bob Evans wins, the incumbent, 55% of the vote against Pat Burke. For District Council 3 in Jefferson Parish, we have Donald Jones winning with 52% of the vote over Byron Lee. House District 96, I believe you're going to do that.
Yeah, Ed Murray is a friend of the former incumbent who's been elected judge, Charles Jones. He wins handily tonight over Yvonne Hughes. In House District 100, which is a new black majority district, David Armstrong ran a very aggressive campaign against Louis Ivon, the white incumbent, defeating him 52 to 48. In District 102, all of the votes are in. The winner is Troy Carter, 56% of the vote. We have a defeat of incumbent tonight on the West Bank. Terry G. losing handily to Steve Windhorst, son of former state senator or retiring state senator Fritz Windhorst, 61% of the vote. In District 87, another white incumbent losing in a black majority district. Kyle Mark Green, the brother-in-law of Congressman Bill Jefferson, winning with 59% of the vote. In House District 76 on the North Shore, 20-year incumbent Ed Scoggin going down to defeat to Suzanne Mayfield Krieger. In District 90 on the North Shore, this is a new North Shore district, Pete Snyder, the winner with 57% of the vote over Mark Jolisan. In House District 56, boy, this one is something to keep an eye on, another race, but we may want to make a mental note of to go back and look at if we have the chance. Ralph Miller, the incumbent, powerful member of the House, but losing at the moment to Joel Chasson. We'll have to keep an eye on that one. In House District 57 in St. John and St. James Parish, Joe Accardo looked to be in perhaps some trouble in the primary. He is the winner, however, tonight, 54% of the vote. In House District 58 in more of the river parishes, the winner is Roy Quazair, 62% of the vote over Pam Como. And a couple of Senate races. Marty Shawbear will take the place of his late father, Leonard Shawbear, longtime senator. Shawbear winning tonight by about a little better, actually, than a 2-to-1 margin. Joe Severio looked to be in trouble 4 weeks ago, but he pulls out a victory tonight over Jeff Diaz, 52% of the vote.
For assessor in St. Tammany Parish, Patricia Schwartz-Core has won with 53% of the vote over Barry Baggart. For sheriff of Plaquemines Parish, we have a major upset. We have Jiff Hingle winning over the incumbent Ernest Wooten. School Board District 5 in Plaquemines Parish, it's Carlton LaFrance beating Joseph Sylvie. For sheriff in St. Charles Parish, it is a very tight race, but Bradley with 51% to Marino's 49%, but that's with only 50% of the precinct showing. St. Charles Parish president, again with only 50% of the precincts in, Locke 2 percentage points ahead of Tregear. Parish president in St. John's Parish, we have a winner. The incumbent is out. Lester Millett out, being beaten by Labatt, 52%. And they just keep going back and forth, don't they, John?
Boy, they sure do.
They sure do. Council at Large Division B in St. John Parish, Terry the winner with 55% over Wilson's 45%. Council District 2 in St. John Parish, it is Ned Dewey, the incumbent. Oh my gosh, look at that. Look at how... winner, but look at...
That may, in fact, change as the night goes on when they vote, or not as the night goes on, but when they open the machines this week.
That's right. That's just about as tight as they can get without being one-on-one. But Duan mentioned the winner now tonight. For Council District 4 in St. John Parish, with 100% of the 5 of 5 precincts, Majori in with 51% over Goodman's 49%. Sheriff in St. James Parish, it's Martin, 52% over Poche's 48%. For assessor in St. James Parish, Bourgeois, the incumbent, back in with 53% over Wagaspac's 47%. Council District 2 in St. James Parish, Roussel, the winner, 57% over Henderson's 43%. Council District 5 in St. James Parish, Ambrose beating Cooper 59% to 41%. Council District 7 in St. James Parish, Becknell beating the incumbent with 54% over Gravois 46%. And Wilson the winner for parish president of Lafourche Parish, 64% over Auten's 36%. Weber beating the incumbent that's Duffy Bro for Lafourche Parish Sheriff, 62% to 38%. Council District 2 in Lafourche Parish, Saunier with 53% over Douay's 47%. Council District 6 in Lafourche Parish, Benoit, 52% over Levron's 48%. Council District 10, Bro, the incumbent, once again going in with 52% of the vote to Say's 48%. And Johnson, the incumbent, with 50%, the winner over Charpentier with 50%, but look at that.
But that's another cliffhanger, six votes, so that could change.
That's right.
If you look up cliffhanger in the dictionary, that's what you get.
Well, we have Bouvier winning with 54% over Brunet, 46%. Council District 14, Lafourche Parish, Doucette 51% to Huffstetler's 49%.
And in the parish president's race, Bubby Lyons losing tonight He had held this position before, Bonvillian, winning with 51% of the vote in Terrebonne. In the home rule question in Terrebonne Parish, we have about 99% of the vote in, and that is a 57 to 43 margin on the number one question. This is a district fire protection tax. All of the vote in, and they win there, the supporters of that, with 68% of the vote. Now, in St. Bernard Parish, a change in government happening in St. Bernard, switching to a council president form of government from police jury. Lynn Dean, longtime school board member, winning tonight, 53% of the vote. So a couple of interesting questions there. Now, the police jury tax, I believe this is the health and welfare tax that has been talked about, and that's another one of those cliffhangers, but no winning. We say 50%, it's probably more like 50.3 or 4, so those numbers will probably stand. So we have some races still to be decided. Schmidt and Fox McKithen, most notably on the Secretary of State's level, and hopefully we'll have some more numbers as we continue the news. But before we do that, we'll take a break. Lots of sports to report today. Number 1 and number 2 in the country going at it. We'll have highlights in just a moment.
Most boys dream of becoming football stars, but only a few make it. Some make it without strength or size or speed. They do it with just a lot of hard work. That's why we salute the Prep Players of the Week on Eyewitness Sports. Because none of these boys may ever make it to the Super Bowl, but wherever they go, they've learned their dreams can take them there.
Meet the Prep Players of the Week, Tuesday night at 10 on WWL-TV, Channel 4.
There's something new, you're gonna love it. From KFC, it's called the Gold Bucket. Pick any kind, just $5.99. At KFC, it's Gold Bucket time.
Hey, New Orleans, get a KFC Go Bucket of hot wings or original recipe for $5.99. And now, for a limited time, get a 10-piece Go Bucket of extra tasty crispy, just $4.99. That's right, New Orleans, 10 pieces, $4.99. Right now at KFC.
Join the Louisiana Philharmonic Orchestra
and the New Orleans Saints in kicking off a winning season of music.
Saturday, November 23rd.
Tickets at the Sanger and Ticketmaster.
All roads lead to the New Orleans International Auto Show sale, the most spectacular sale ever held in the convention center. See all the 1992 domestic and import cars, trucks, and vans side by side at sensational auto show prices. $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 dealer discounts, cash rebates, highest rates, factory incentives, and on-the-spot financing. This Wednesday through Saturday, a dazzling extravaganza. Non-stop auto show fun for the whole family. Wednesday through Saturday at the convention center. Discount coupons at Schwegmann's Giant Supermarkets.
Do you know what it means to miss New Orleans?
She's the petite dynamo with a very, very big voice. Please help me welcome Mary Serpat.
Angela, Monday at 4 on Channel 4.
The LSU Tigers trying to close out the 91 season on a positive note. Since they can't go to a bowl, the best LSU can finish 6-5. Tonight they could severely damage Mississippi State's bowl opportunities with a homecoming win in Death Valley. Talk about your good starts. How about the second play of the game? Jesse Daigle starting at quarterback and hooking up with a wide open Todd Kinchin, similar to Florida State, 75 yards for the touchdown, 7-0 LSU. But William Sleepy Robinson, the state quarterback, on the 11-yard option to tie it at 7. It was 14-7 Bulldogs right before half. Robinson hit William Prince for the touchdown to make it 21-7. Now the Tigers made a threat in the second half. Again it is Daigle, and again it is to Kinchin. 65 yards, but Todd will be hauled down inside the 5-yard line. LSU could not get in from there. That was pretty much the story of the season. No winning season for Curly Hallman. The Tigers lose tonight 28-19. As most of you know, LSU, the football team, 4 members were arrested on Thursday night for a fight in the athletic dorm with the basketball team. Tonight, Curly Hallman said he would move in to the athletic dorm, trying to put an end to some of those problems. The college football world today looked to Tallahassee, Florida. The #1 Florida State Seminoles against the #2 Miami Hurricanes. Would this finally be the year Bobby Bowden gets his national championship, or would the Canes steal the show again? Miami scored first, but then the Noles gambled on 4th down. 7-3 Miami had the lead until Paul Moore's touchdown made it 10-7 Florida State. It was 16-10 Noles until Larry Jones put Miami up by 1. 30 seconds to play. Jerry Thomas could be the hero. 34-yarder for Florida State, and they would retain their #1 ranking, but he is wide right. Miami takes over #1. They're going to the Orange Bowl as they win it 17-16. Washington big over Oregon State 58-6. Michigan blanked Illinois. Florida getting their first ever SEC title, beat Kentucky. California won, as did Alabama, by 3. The 12th-ranked Sugar Bowl-bound Notre Dame Fighting Irish against Penn State today. 21-7 in Happy Valley, Penn State. What a blowout. Big day for O.J. McDuffie on the reverse, 37 yards for the score. McDuffie also caught 2 TD passes. Notre Dame coming to the Sugar with 3 or more losses. 35-13 your final there this afternoon. Iowa defeated Northwestern 24-10. Tennessee beat Ole Miss 36-25. Nebraska won, and tonight the Aggies defeated the Hogs. East Carolina beat Virginia Tech. Clemson big over the Terps. Colorado beat Kansas late. Syracuse big over Boston College. Oklahoma won the Battle of that state. Ohio State beat Indiana. And Texas Tech, your upset winner, over Baylor. 4 state scores to pass along. Louisiana Tech defeated Southern Miss. Southern lost tonight to Tennessee State. USL beat Arkansas State, and Grambling a 3-point winner. A couple of Eastern Conference bullies squaring off tonight. The bad boys of Motown, the Detroit Pistons, against Charles Barkley and his 76ers. Close contest throughout the game. The Pistons on defense as usual. Dennis Rodman with the steal up court to Joe Dumars for the easy layup, all tied up at 39. But then the Sixers take to the break. This would be Johnny Dawkins up ahead to Charles Barkley as the Sixers pull it out 89-86. Elsewhere, Utah defeated the Bullets 107-98. Charlotte beat Boston 118-109. Cleveland by 10 over the Pacers. Dallas beat Phoenix. San Antonio beat the Knicks. They are in overtime in Milwaukee, and Denver has defeated Portland. Also, do not forget, tomorrow afternoon, 3 o'clock right here on Channel 4, the Saints and the Chargers. Coming up next, Carl Arredondo will have the rest of our weekend forecast. Stay with us.
If you take medication every day, read the fine print. No, not here. Here, the price. Because while the prescription in the bottle is the same from one pharmacy to another, the price isn't. Walmart Pharmacy has the low price. So switching to Walmart Pharmacy can mean substantial savings. Walmart Pharmacy, a trusted place to fill your prescription without emptying your pocketbook. Walmart, always the low price. Always.
Friends here at Dove Herrick Ford Lincoln Mercury picking you, there are no surprises when you get ready to buy a car or truck. The price that's advertised is the price you pay. No hidden cost. This 1992 Ford Ranger XLT, air-conditioned, cassette, power steering, all the extra equipment that you like. After the rebate, friend, $87.88. Yes, $87.88 for a 92 Ranger at Dove Herrick Ford Lincoln Mercury picking you.
Use the hotline.
What's the difference between Chi-Chi's and the other leading sauces? Simple. This is where our salsa recipe came from. While we suspect the other leading sauces came from someplace like this.
Gentlemen, shall we manufacture salsa or oven mitts?
So don't be surprised if ours seems to capture the real Mexican flavor. Bring home Chi-Chi's, salsa that came from a restaurant, not a boardroom.
It's amazing how some ice creams have the nerve to call themselves vanilla when I can't find even a hint of a vanilla bean. That's why I love Breyers. Cool, cream, real vanilla beans. Intense flavors and chills down my spine. Any ice cream with less vanilla taste would be laughable.
Breyers all-natural vanilla ice cream. So real, you can taste it.
The big weather story for tonight, a dense fog advisory in effect through tonight on into mid-morning across parts of southeastern Louisiana. Let's check outside and show you the conditions. Under cloudy skies, we have a temperature of 66 degrees, 65 at the Audubon Zoo, Slidell at 64, 97% the relative humidity, winds out of the southeast at 5, and the pressure is holding steady. Looking at some of the visibilities across the area as of 10 o'clock, about a quarter of a mile around the Lakefront Airport, also around Lakeview, over towards the Audubon Park. We do have about a quarter of a mile. Same story around Belle Chase. Up to the north, though, and the west, really not that bad. At the airport, about a mile and a quarter visibility being reported. Satellite showing a big storm system in the upper levels across parts of Colorado, bringing lots of new snow to Wolf Creek Pass, the southern mountains of Colorado, picking up 30 inches in the past 24 hours, while a frontal system across Texas really is not going to make its way into Louisiana anytime soon. We'll have to wait for a system coming into the west to finally clear us on out and allow us to get back to where we should be temperature-wise for this time of year. Tonight, the frontal system through parts of central Texas, working its way so slowly towards the east, while the front in the west is coming on shore, bringing winds this morning up to 95 miles per hour around Whidbey Island in Washington. Looking on into tomorrow evening, frontal system still approaching the Louisiana border. We'll see some widely scattered showers across parts of southeastern Louisiana with, again, humidity and fog burning off mid-morning tomorrow. As far as Monday, well, that frontal system really is not going to pass us. We're going to stay in a southerly flow, keeping us with the chance of rain, while a system that was in the west races on into the southern plain states by Monday, and as that works its way eastward, late Monday night or late Tuesday on into Wednesday morning, we should finally start to clear out, hopefully, Wednesday afternoon. Tonight, dense fog advisory in effect. Be careful if you're heading out there along the high-rise or the causeway. Low temperatures about 58 to 64. As far as the forecast for tomorrow, mostly cloudy to cloudy, widely scattered showers or thunderstorms, high temperatures 74 to 82, winds out of the south-southeast 10 to 18 miles per hour. The extended forecast, still a good chance of rain Monday and Tuesday. Hopefully Wednesday afternoon we will be drying up, and Thursday temperatures getting to be a little bit on the cooler side. Boaters tonight, fog late tonight into the morning hours, winds south-southeasterly 8 to 15 knots. And as far as the tide information, half a foot range on the tide. Stay tuned. When Eyewitness News continues, John and Angela will have all the election results coming up.
What do you do when your husband calls to tell you he's bringing guests home for dinner and you haven't cleaned your silver in months?
Get Tarnex.
What do you use to clean away the tarnish from even the most deeply embedded patterns of those special serving pieces?
Use Tarnex.
Is there any easy way to keep sterling silver or silver plate always looking bright and shiny?
With Tarnex.
How do you remove years of tarnish from gold, silver, and copper coins?
Dip them in Tarnex.
How do you get months of tarnish off those badly discolored copper pots and pans?
Tarnex does it all.
Yes, Tarnex does it all, quickly, easily. But unlike silver polishes, Tarnex removes only the tarnish, not the precious metal. Remember the name, Tarnex. It's guaranteed to work for you at home as easily as it does on TV or return to place of purchase for your money back.
Tarnex is available at Walgreens, Winn-Dixie, Ace, and Kmart. Eckerd, McCrory, TG&Y, HL Green, True Value, Service Star, K&B.
Who's going to get that last glass of milk? You know, women are more prone to osteoporosis. Maybe you should let her have it, Harry. But milk relieves stress. He needs vitamin B for that type A personality, Marge. Of course, little Alex here needs milk to grow. And nothing beats the ice-cold taste of a big glass of Louisiana milk. If you know what's good for you,
You'll get more milk.
So who's going to get the last piece of cherry pie?
Vision Plaza offers you a pair of Durasoft Colors contact lenses and a free pair of Durasoft Clear contacts for just $189. Watch what a change of eye color can do for you.
Durasoft Colors contact lenses. A woman's prerogative.
See the dramatic difference of Durasoft Colors contacts at Vision Plaza.
The Saints meet the Chargers, Sunday at 3 on Channel 4.
This night went quicker than many people perhaps expected, but the cliffhanger of the evening on a statewide level is Secretary of State, and we have a winner in that race now, although it is very close and it could conceivably change with the projection being that Fox McKithen, the Republican incumbent, will hold on to his job Two reasons it could change. One being, of course, that there's still 1% of the precincts out, and the other being that they will open the machines, but McKithen apparently will hold on to his seat, defeating Doug Schmidt. A couple of other races to clean things up here tonight as we wrap up. The House District 56 race features Ralph Miller, a powerful chairman of a House committee, losing at the moment to Joel Chassaw by a 52-48 margin. That race still too close to call at this point. And the other race that we were keeping an eye on is St. Charles Sheriff Victor Bradley, maintaining his lead at this point over Johnny Marino, the incumbent, by 2 percentage points, still 15 precincts out. So that one not decided yet.
And we have a visitor late in our studio tonight, the mayor, Mayor Barthélemy. We thank you for joining us. You're obviously very elated about Edwin Edwards winning. Were you surprised by the margin?
I really was surprised by the margin. I thought Edwin would win. I figured maybe about 54, 55%, but not by 61%.
Mr. Mayor, what did Louisiana tell the nation tonight? Many people on both sides wanted to send some sort of message, so what was the message that was sent?
Well, I think Louisiana can be very proud. We sent the message that, you know, we're not as backwards as you think, we're not as foolish as you think, and we're not as racist as you think, that we will respond to a threat, in a threat like David Duke.
Are you surprised that David Duke has garnered the support that he has gotten, both in this race and in his former one?
Yeah, I was surprised that he did as well as he did, to be honest with you, because I thought that most people understood what he stood for. But he was a very clever man. He was able to convince many people that he had changed, that he was born again. And that was very clever of him, and it was effective.
How do you explain what happened? I mean, the numbers that Ed has looked at in his sample precincts, Ed Renwick, indicate that Edwin Edwards got about 50% of the white vote, that in some very conservative parishes around the state, Edwin Edwards has done better in this election than he did in 1983. So it was the real difference seems to have been black turnout, but also the fact that Duke did not do as well in the white vote. What was it that got to voters, that changed minds perhaps of some people?
Well, I think the coalition of people who stood up and the fact that just about every elected official supported Edwin Edwards, every civic group supported him, everyone with credibility was supporting Edwin Edwards and saying that electing David Duke would be a negative impact on the state.
You are someone who has worked with many of the business leaders that Edwin Edwards is being supported by for the very first time. Some of those people have supported you in your endeavors and worked with the city. You're somebody who tries to put together coalitions. On the other hand, this new Edwards coalition is just that. I mean, it's something that nobody could have predicted months ago. Can he keep it together?
Well, I think he can. Edwin is a very, very capable person, a capable politician. He's going to be a capable governor. He's got something that all of us hope as politicians, to have the kind of support where you have all the good guys on one side and all the bad guys on the other side.
Very briefly, do you think that the city is going to fare well with Edwin Edwards?
I believe so. Edwin Edwards understands the city. He was helpful when he was governor before. He likes New Orleans, and he understands the problems that we have, and that's one of the reasons I supported him in the first primary.
All right, and I bet you're happy you did now.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Better to be with him in the first than in the second, I guess.
Right.
You're at the front of the line.
But he's going to be good to New Orleans. I really believe that.
All right, Mayor Sidney Barthélemy, we thank you at this late hour for stopping by.
You're welcome.
And that about wraps it up for us this evening. Edwin Edwards winning an unprecedented 4th term as Louisiana governor. He says an historic opportunity. He has a news conference tomorrow at 11 o'clock in the morning in which he says he will go into detail, at least some more detail, about what he plans in his administration. We may, in fact, even hear the first word about how he will handle the transition team. I don't know that we'll hear anything tomorrow about who he would appoint unless perhaps it was one of the chief of staff positions or something like commissioner of administration. I don't think he will name cabinet secretaries, as I believe he did 8 years ago, but we should get a few more clues tomorrow about some of his priorities, and we'll have that, of course, on Eyewitness News tomorrow night on Eyewitness News Night Watch at 10.
It has been a very difficult 4 weeks, I think, for a great many people, and they have both candidates have expressed that we need to go through a healing process, but perhaps tomorrow will be the new day.
I think that it has been an historic day today And a lot of, there's no doubting, a lot of very serious challenges facing this governor. Ironically enough, many of the same ones that he faced when he took office 8 years ago. What he does have is this new coalition. I think the key critical question from that point of view will the Jim Bob Moffats and those who were inclined to go with Edwards this time stick with him, and what effect will it have on the legislature? We'll see. Stay tuned. In the meantime, that's Campaign 91. Thanks for watching.
Good night.
Campaign 91, The Final Count, has been a special presentation of Channel 4's Eyewitness News and has been sponsored by Tharp Sonheimer Tharp Funeral Home, to be remembered when a choice is necessary. La Manapana Fala Funeral Home, remembered for generations by New Orleans families. The Greater New Orleans International Auto Show, and by personal injury attorney Michael Hingle.